Hello, hello. We'll get right into archaics. Our, this is archaics 4.0. We kind of took off last year, but then a lot of complications were introduced into my life, and we kind of disrupted the flow of being able to put these type of presentations together. These are the 4.0 presentations are laden with chronological data points, and they're not for the average person. In this presentation, we're summing up a lot and showing a bunch of the old books. Yeah, that's where I get a lot of my criticisms from. People who have no idea what these old books contain actually criticize that the data from archaics comes from old books. The duplicity kills me. All right. So we have a lot of citations from old books. I'm going to show you the actual pages of those books. I have many stacks of books right here for your viewing pleasure, because this is all. I'm just going to say it in Southeast Texan parlance. This is a humdinger. Several of you have been emailing me and messaging me and seeing the special video I did, like 2 hours and 45 minutes, basically a data dump for females on what they can expect, how they can prepare, and how they can actually thrive in a collapse scenario when everything's falling apart. And while all these social media content creators and authors are trying to tell you to do all kinds of shit that it has nothing, all the weapons training and all the prepping and all this shit like that. Yeah, I cut through all that bullshit, and I showed my underground and my cipher community the business, and showed them this is exactly what you can expect in the first 24 hours, 72 hours, 5 days, 7-day to 10-day window. This is the precise scenario. So it instantly throws all this bullshit you've been told out the window. So it's a real popular video in the underground, but we had to take it off of YouTube. So it was deleted off of YouTube. And for those of you who are still looking I got emails this morning of people who just haven't gone back in the underground and looked, but I uploaded it late last night, and it's in the underground. It is not attached to YouTube at all. You can see the whole video in the underground now. Meanwhile, I'll save any other announcements for the end. All right. We'll see. Archaic, for those of you who don't know what Archaics 4.0 is, I'm going to give you just a short reminder right here. Let me get out of this, whatever this was. All right. So I'm going to share a window here, share a screen. There we go. And for the Archaics veterans, you need this reminder as well. There's no doubt. You need this reminder as well. So this was episode 1. This is Archaics 4.0. It's Ionian Science of the Phoenix. This entire 3-hour presentation was nothing but a data dump showing you the one single year in history and what happened in that year. And some of you may recall 583 BC, the sun darkened. It has been recorded in all the encyclopedias. It shows you it was the month of May. It's not even contested. We even have a monument in Turkey at Yassilikaya that commemorates a Lydian and a Median king making a peace pact, and in between them they're holding a black disc, because that's what the sun became. Instead of emitting light, the sun became black. No, it wasn't the moon eclipsing the sun. So what makes it remarkable is that Thales of Miletus, a Phoenician by remote descent, actually predicted this to happen 2 years before it indeed happened. He became one of the 7 wise men of Greece for this prediction, but at the same time in history, the very ancient Delphic oracle suddenly changed its Pythian calendar. Inexplicably, the Delphic oracle realized that an age had just passed. And to commemorate ushering in a new epic, the Pythian calendar was altered. All this is covered in the video. So this was during the reign of Nebuchadnezzar II. This is it's been noticed by many people. He has the exact same name. He is Nebuchadnezzar II, the one who conquered Jerusalem just 3 years later. But Nebuchadnezzar II was literally named this because of this phenomenon. It was because of the sun darkening phenomenon that he was given the throne name Nebuchadnezzar. His original name and his biblical name is not Nebuchadnezzar. It is Nabopolassar. Sometimes they called him Nebu for short. But this name was specifically given to him in the same way that many other rulers were given names of their predecessors when the same phenomena occurred during their reign. So this was 583 BC. Japan as well at this time, this transition from 583 to 582 BC, Japan suddenly emerges out of the timeline of myth into the historical record with Nihon Shoki. Many other things are mentioned, but this is just a summary of 583 BC. Very unusual phenomenon. The darkening of the sun stopped 5 years of continual warfare between the empire of the Medes and the empire of the Lydians, who had occupied ancient Phrygia in Turkey. And when the sun turned black, both armies had decided that this was an omen to sue for peace. But this wasn't an eclipse by the moon. And the historical record is very clear by all omissions of any mention of the moon. Whereas Herodotus had mentioned 4 other eclipses, and every single time he mentioned the moon. And the reason he mentioned the moon is because in the contest between the Greeks and the Persians, the Greeks venerated Apollo. Apollo was represented by the solar disk, emblematic of Phaethon and his chariot. But the Persians were an Eastern empire and they venerated the moon. So an eclipse of the moon, which is called a lunar eclipse, did not look favorable to the Persians when the moon disappeared. But when the moon covered up the sun, it looked like it was an omen for the East to defeat the West. Herodotus was very specific about talking about when the moon was involved. But in this incident, the moon is never mentioned when the sun darkens and it's predicted 2 years in advance. 583 BC happens to be the very end of the timeline in Archaics 4.0 thus far. And we move back further in history to this incident here. Episode 2 of Archaics 4.0, Pharaoh Seknakti and the Great Mediterranean Destruction. Atlantis has fallen. The year is 1135 BC. The sun darkened in the month of May. It is predicted by the Danan. This is a mariner race. It occurs in the reign of Nebuchadnezzar I of Babylon, whose cuneiform tablets tell us today that something appeared in the sky, and translators designate it as a comet. But something appeared in the sky, a comet, and darkened the sun. This is an actual Babylonian text. It happened in the reign of Nebuchadnezzar I. The year is 1135 BC. It is this incident, it's the reason why 552 years later, Nebuchadnezzar, or Nabopolassar, Nebu, was given the throne name Nebuchadnezzar II because the darkening of the sun was reminiscent of what had happened to an earlier Babylonian king, a famous Babylonian king. And for those who know their history, you will know that Nebuchadnezzar I was a super famous king. He was beloved of his people. He basically spearheaded the Neo-Babylonian Empire. It was a resurrection of the more ancient Babylon, but he had reinvoked its earlier institutions, rebuilt the temples, fortified the city. It was a Babylonian Renaissance. And what's crazy is 552 years later, Nabopolassar was doing the exact same thing. Little old Nebu. Little Nebu was doing the same thing when the sun turned black. So he was given the throne name Nebuchadnezzar II. He was also initiating a Babylonian Renaissance. It was 5.5 centuries later. Babylon needed to be rebuilt. It was renovated. These two men have almost identical lives. They aren't the same man. They are separated by 550 years, but like so many pharaohs were given the same throne name, so were these two Babylonian kings, and the only common denominator is the Phoenix phenomenon. So 1135 BC, we have the absolute complete vanishing of the sea peoples who have been plaguing the Mediterranean for over 140 years. They've been attacking Libya. They've been attacking Egypt. They've been attacking the Dardanelles. They've been attacking the Ilium, famous city of Troy. Troa. They've been attacking Crete. They've been attacking the Hittites. They've been doing excursions into the Black Sea along the coasts of Pontus and Armenia, and suddenly they vanished. The sun goes dark in the month of May as fleets of Danaan are invading ancient Ireland. They're defeating a race of giants called the Fomorians. The Fomorians saw the ships coming and they didn't fear it. They didn't fear it at all because the first time the Danaan invaded, they got their asses handed to them. But this, in the month of May, 1135 BC, was the Second Battle of Moytura. And in the Second Battle of Moytura, the Danaan arrived on the coasts, disembarked, got all their troops in array, and their priests and shamans started doing a ritual, and the sun went black, and it terrified the Fomorians, and the Danaan won the purchase of Ireland. Well, this was all Phoenix phenomenon in 1135 BC. Pharaoh Seknakti left us in the final year of his reign. 1135 BC, he left us a record. And in that record, he said the sky had turned red. Invaders were plummeting were pillaging the coasts. Tsunami had swept through the coasts of Egypt, and it looked like the heavens were falling apart. We never heard from Seknakti again. The Great Mediterranean Dark Age began soon after that, or right then and there. But this is the actual fall of Atlantis itself. Atlantis is removed from the historical record. Now, the third video in the series is Fall of the Children of the Sun. This is Archaics 4.0. This is a summary of 5 videos that were already done a year and a half, and 2 years ago. This is one of my main criticisms for a lot of researchers out there, trying to make a name for themselves. Some of them already have made a name for themselves on some bullshit. But the Ogygian destruction is the most widely reported total systemic reset in 1687 BC, and it is absolutely ignored by every single person writing books today. However, in my research, I'm citing all the guys in the 1950s, 40s, 30s, 20s, all the way going back 400 years, all the way going back to Marcus Varro 2,000 years ago, who recorded this destruction. Incidentally, it was 552 years before the destruction of Atlantis. 552 years before the sun darkened as the Danen were invading the coasts of ancient Ireland. There's that 552 years again. But the children of the sun, it blows my mind that more people don't know about this. This is when all the megalithic ruins, all these, you got thousands of people, man, that are trying to make a name for themselves, showing megaliths and ancient ruins and showing, and I applaud them, but they're just not putting it together. None of those sites were ever finished because they thought they had 48 more years. And I've covered this in my published books. All these megalithic builders thought they were on an original Anuna-Nur timeline, the original Yuga system of the Puranic texts. But they weren't. That old 216,000 day count system of yugas had collapsed into the Phoenix cycle of 552 years. The Anuna cycle ended at the Great Flood, the 600-year cycle, which I've got videos on showing you all the ancient sources that talk about a 600-year epic. They thought they had 48 more years till 1639 BC, but they did not. They did not, because when the Phoenix cycle, the first Phoenix cycle after the Great Flood, the 552nd year after the flood of Typhon, known as the flood of Noah, it caught them by surprise. That's why that stone is still in the quarry at Baalbek. That's why the largest of the moai, the giant heads on Easter Island, is still in the quarry outside the volcano. This is why so many ancient sites, the archaeologists have been baffled by seeing the chisels and the hammers are all still at the work sites, like all the men just dropped their tools and left. And that's where archaeologists found them all in the same layer. It's because they were caught flat-footed. They didn't even know that they had jumped timelines and a whole new timeline had taken over, and they suffered for it. But the reason we were able to find all these megalithic cities and all these unique locations is because of the Phoenix phenomenon, which causes subsidence and upheaval. Anyway, this is what this book is about. I've talked about this book many, many times. I got a couple videos about this book. This is Children of the Sun. Now, this is W.J. Perry, Children of the Sun. This book was written, it was finished in 1923. This book is huge, very small print. It's very small print, and it is massive amount of data. This man does not know anything about Typhon, nothing about cataclysms in the Phoenix. He doesn't talk about any of that. All he does is document all the Bronze Age civilizations that had contact with ancient Egypt in the 1700s to 1600s BC. And his conclusion in this book is he literally says, and I've shown the pages in prior videos, that he does not know why, but every single Bronze Age government, civilization, and culture was reset in a terrible cataclysm. Quote, about 1688 BC. That's a scientific bullseye for 1687 BC. That's the conclusion of W.J. Perry, who doesn't know anything about these cataclysmic cycles. He's just an anthropologist, archaeologist, going with the evidence of what he's found all over the world about a total collapse of all civilization at this time. So, Fall of the Children of the Sun is one video that summarizes 5 other videos that go into a lot of detail about the Ogygian destruction. So far, 583 BC, fall of Atlantis, 1135 BC, fall of the children of the sun darkened in the month of May. All that happened in 1687 BC. Let's see. In the book of Jasher, in the year 1687 BC, we know it's 1680 BC because biblical chronologists dated the abduction of Dinah to 1688 BC. And it was shortly after that, like within months, carrying over into 1687 BC, that the sons of Israel, Jacob amassed together, and they went to confront the men of Shechem, and 7 Canaanite armies attacked them. And Jacob came out and saw his sons were distressed, and he prayed unto God. And as he prayed unto God, he told his sons to be patient, that deliverance was coming. And suddenly, rocks began falling from the sky and plagued the Canaanites. Then the sun turned black, and the moon turned as blood, and a mighty earthquake shook the whole ground. And the Canaanites were scared to death of Jacob because they thought he had caused these things. It's very similar to what the Danaan did. They knew a phenomenon was coming, and they capitalized on it in their war against the Fomorians. Also, at this time, Harold T. Wilkins explains that in the Ogygian destruction, red dust, red rain, and red mud resurfaced the entire world. It fell for days, blocked out the sun, made the moon look red, and the ancients actually believed that the heavens were bleeding. This is all worldwide quakes and tsunamis. Also, the Tiahuanaco, Tiahuanaco, Pumapunka, all that was destroyed in upheaval when that whole area was raised 12,000 feet, shoving Lake Titicaca 12,000 feet, causing all the marine life, saline life forms, ocean life to slowly adapt to freshwater lake at super high altitude. And the prophecies that and traditions attached to Tiahuanaco was that they knew that a destruction was coming, and it was going to affect the power of the sun and bring darkness. And it's exactly what happened. So that's three of them right there. The fourth video in Archaics 4.0 in this series is the Typhon flood. 4.0 of Noah. This is one thing I've been wanting to debate people about for a long time. I'm just not going to get that a debate. But the chronological information that we have is overwhelming. What we have about the Great Flood. And I have friends and I've got colleagues that they've fallen for the old 12,000 year uniformitarian psyop. Almost everybody's fallen for it. It's not just Graham Hancock and Randall Carlson. It's everybody. Everybody has fallen for this 12,000 year Ice Age Younger Dryas BS. So, and totally skipped over all the real cataclysms that are in the historical record, actual human resets. Well, the date of the flood is absolutely integral because when you're able to date the Great Flood to the Ice Age, it allows you to date all kinds of other things erroneously as well, like the building of the Great Pyramids. And you guys know I've mentioned recently, I've got colleagues that do that. They actually believe, the Great Pyramid was built, the complex was built after the flood. And their reasoning is because they have accepted information that the flood is further back in history than it actually is. So I've been wanting to debate this because I've got all my T's crossed and all my I's dotted. When it comes to the Great Flood of Noah, all the ancient sources, the ancient writers, everything shows it was the 23rd century BC. And it's very easy to show, and that's what I show in this video. So all these incidents, first of all, it was predicted, just like Jacob, the Danaan, Thales of Miletus, this was predicted as well. This is where we're at. This is the video we're doing today, the Genesis reset. So the Great Flood was predicted as well. But we'll go ahead and move on. So this is the presentation we're doing right now. This is the Genesis reset. The Adam and Eve story is at the beginning of the pre-flood world. The flood is the end of the pre-flood world. It's very important to recognize this distinction. We have shown a perfect 552-year timeline. And every 552 years there are these epic sun darkenings attendant with sky fallout, red rain, every single one of them had red rain, red dust, red mud, earthquakes, the moon turning red, the sun going black. Every single one of them were resets to different areas of the world, most of them hemispheric, these big ones. So we get here to the Genesis reset, Adam and Eve. This is at the beginning of the pre-flood world. This data that this data that I'm showing in Archaics 4.0, a lot of it largely comes from my very first published book on the Phoenix. This is When the Sun Darkens. Matter of fact, I have some copies right here. I think. Nope, it's the one I don't have. I'm sorry. Yeah, you got to order that from Paul Tice from Booktree. I do have. Shoot, I'm getting short of books. I've got some books, but I don't have these books. But I went even deeper on the Phoenix phenomenon in this book here. Showed Nostradamus and Mother Shipton are not as arbitrary as you think. They knew exactly what they were talking about. This is a book that's available on Amazon. This is not a Booktree book. This is a book that's on Amazon. It's huge. Shocking Secrets of Antiquity. A lot of Phoenix data in here. But also, you guys know I have over 60, 70 videos just on these Phoenix episodes. Oh, here's all 4 videos right there. All right. So that's your intro, showing you basically where we are, what we've been doing. So the Great Flood incident was also, as I've shown, the Great Flood of Noah occurred in the month of May, just like the other ones did. It was predicted by Noah, or somebody told Noah. They knew it was coming. The flood traditions all have evidence that it was predicted by somebody, because this is how man knew. In the Puranas even found out about it. Somebody had predicted it and told him. No, somebody had predicted it and told Noah. We have actual pseudepigraphical texts that talk about how Adam had a dream and passed that information on to Seth, and the Sethites carried the knowledge of when the world was going to be destroyed by water when they built the divine monument, which we know is the Great Pyramid. And then they later told Noah. The Sethites told Noah, when the flood was coming, and you know the rest of the story. So the Great Flood is caused in the oldest traditions by Typhon, the destroyer. It is the day the sky fell. It is the collapse of the vapor canopy. It is also, and this is critical to this presentation here, the Great Flood by all ancient testimonies was the year 1656 of the world, or 1656 of Adam, or 1656 post-Eden. It is always 1656. It's 1656 in all the earlier Hebrew rabbinical writings, in Genesis, the book of Jasher. It is always 1656 of the pre-flood world. In the year 1656, the sky fell, and it was the Great Flood of worldwide fame. It was the fall of the 7 kings of the Anunnaki. So that's your intro. Took 30 minutes to get through the intro. So you can imagine how much I have prepared for you for this presentation. Because the story of Adam and Eve isn't what you think. And I've been saying that for a good 5 years now. I've been showing on YouTube. It's not. It's all metaphor. It's a totally different scenario than what you think. It's a surface garment that's concealing really deep and harrowing shit. Coffee's so real. I'm a little sore. I've been on my rowing machine for days. I was telling everybody in Cypher the other day. I think Thursday we were in Cypher. Yeah, I was just zone out. Turn the TV on. Sometimes I don't even know what I'm looking at. I just zone out. I just row and row and row and row until all of a sudden, man, my body's telling me, "Oh, you need to stop. You need to stop." I just mentally I can go. Mentally I can be somewhere else thinking, cogitating on something, and I don't even remember what my body's doing something rote. So it doesn't require me to think. It's like zombie driving. You guys know, you've all done it. Got behind the wheel, go to thinking about something real bit, all of a sudden you zombie driving. Yeah, subconscious takes over and you make all your turns, you do everything. You don't crash into anybody. You stay within the line, you zombie driving. You know it. Don't lie. Sometimes in broad daylight, we check out and we come right back in. Yeah, man. I know there's other zombies out there. I ain't the only one. Guilty. That's funny. All right. Excuse me. All right, let's get this going. Man, I'm excited about this. File number 1, and I will be generous, and let's see. We have 11 files to go through. This is file number 1. I'm going to preface this with this. Guys, I've got a lot of critics. There's people online talking shit and all that. You know what? I don't care. I don't care. You need to understand the distinction. Going through a book and pulling out a date and then saying the guy's a PhD scholar, whatever, here's the date he gave for this. That's not chronology. All you're doing is citing someone who provided a date. You already know that the bar is very high in archaics. I have kept the bar very high because in order to assert a historical date for something, we need to do it from multiple different vantage points. And I've always maintained that stricture, and I'm not going to stop. Chronology is a science unto itself. And being able to go through a book and cite a date is not chronology. You to qualify as chronological, you must show how you got to that date. There must be like a chain of incidents, a chain of citation, a chain of custody, something like I show you all the time. I'm not going to give you anything as far as a date for any of my research unless you can verify it with a calculator. This has been the bar in archaics from the beginning. So thus far, I've already showed you in the first video that something very unusual happened in the year 583 BC. And then I gave you all the citations as to how we know it was not only 583 BC, but it was the month of May. I did the same thing for 1135 BC. I've done the same thing for the destruction of Atlantis. I've done the same thing for 1687 BC. The Ogygian destruction in the month of May. I've done the exact same thing for the Great Flood of Noah. The destruction happened in the month of May. And I show you how you see that in Genesis and in ancient texts. Because the beginning of the year was the vernal equinox. And the flood happened in the middle of the second month. That's the middle of the month of May. Over and over, I've provided the chain of custody, chain of incidents, and chain of citations. It's absolutely critical important. Everyone pushing the 12,000 year BC cataclysm, Younger Dryas, rock falling from space, Atlantis being destroyed, not one of these researchers has ever stepped up to debate or challenge me because none of them have any of this data. You need to understand how important it is. Chronology is not to be taken lightly. It's easily verifiable. It takes some work. It took some work putting these presentations together. What I'm going to show you in this video cannot be contested. There isn't anybody in the world that's going to come bring forth a whole different chronology, resplendent with citations, chain of bibliography. No one can do it because I'm giving you the truth. There aren't multiple truths. There's only one. So there's, like I said, there's a lot of people are going to tell you a lot of shit. But you make them put up or shut up. It's really easy. Anybody can throw a date at you, but they've got to be able to show it. And they've got to be able to show it from multiple different vantage points. And then their chronological model has to fit with the whole. And this is what we do in archaics. We call it chronicon. Everything must fit. So this is archaics 4.0. It's going through the numbers of the ancient world. It's starting to look really bad on their part that it's not only that they won't debate. Screw a debate. So I can let go of the debate. but it's looking really bad on a lot of the people that I call out because they haven't even acknowledged that they've been called out. That's pathetic. Haven't even acknowledged that someone has brought superior data to the field and they can't even cope with it. Do you have any idea the face that someone would save if they just admit they're wrong? Says, damn, man, dude, until you brought this to our attention, we had no idea. We've just been going by these authors. And these authors, well, we know got their information from these authors. We had no idea that the corrections on the chronology are actually 2,000 years old. You brought that to our attention. No one's even done that. Yeah. I'm not going away. I'm not going away. And sooner or later, these guys are going to be eating crow. There's too many of you starting to ask them questions. Hey, man, how are you going to keep ignoring this? This dude's chronological data completely collapsed this entire model that you're supporting. Why do you continue to support it? Why do you still charge $900 a ticket to tell us a bunch of bullshit? Yeah, man, it's crazy. Anyway, let's move on. I haven't seen that name before. No sync. We're going to talk about some Gnostic stuff here in a little while because they got a hold of some information that's profound. Oh, no, how they got it. Jason for president, my ass. You better stop that, Lisa. Yeah, I'm not doing no politics. I'm not doing no politics. And I'm not even scared to say it. Listen, like you guys already know, there's no backup in me. I'm going to call a spade a spade. I will never enter politics. One, I'm a convicted felon. But even if I wasn't a convicted felon, I'm not going to enter politics because you literally have to bow down, kiss the wall, and let a Jew tell you what to do. And that ain't fucking me. I ain't doing it. It's not me. There is no one in politics anywhere in at least the United States and mostly the Western world who isn't already on their payroll or being blackmailed by them. So you can screw off of that politics shit. I'm not talking to you, Lisa, like that. I'm just saying, screw off with that shit. I'm not. It'll never be me. I'll never run for office. Can't do it. Now, let's see. Yeah, the world's a captured operation. We've talked about that a lot. But what we need to do is get into these files. Because I already know I got some nerds in the chat. I got some real chrononauts in the chat who love the numbers. All right. I got everything in order, so we're gonna move through this smooth. Once I get started, you guys know I'm about to crank up. Because I have no problem with you listening 2, 3, or 4 times to catch it all. All right, share my screen. A lot of books to share. People just don't realize how much data is out here on these issues. So we stopped at the Great Flood. We stopped at 2239 BC, the month of May. The sun darkened, massive earthquakes, the vapor canopy collapsed. When the vapor canopy collapsed, it was recorded in history as the day the sky fell. The whole world did not flood like the Hollywood version, the Christian version of the Great Flood. 8 survivors on a boat. No, there were fleets of ships. And many people their whole lands didn't even get inundated. Some land, there was flooding all over the world because the canopy collapsed, but the whole world didn't flood. There were still people survived in forests, people survived on hills and high ground where there was good runoff and drainage. Yeah, the whole world did not flood. The whole world did not drown. The races of men are far older than Noah. So, this book right here from 1752. Thank you, Third Space. Thank you, Third Space. Appreciate it. So, Long Livers, a curious history of such persons of both sexes who had lived several ages and grown young again. Rejuvenancy. It's just an old book from 1752. We've talked about it before. I just wanted to show you the title page right here. And I want to draw to your attention that according to the author here, this author is literally telling us that in 1752, it was understood that chronologists, 300 years ago, chronologists had already determined that the Great Flood had occurred in the year of the world 1656. That's 1656. On another chapter, here's chapter 3. I like the headers, real decorative headers they had back then. The waters of the flood, which purified the earth in the year of the world, 1656. So he said it twice in this book in 1752. Basically, it was pretty common knowledge. So here's another book from the 1700s, Universal History, from the earliest account of time to the present. I believe it's 1782. I'm not quite sure. Or 1751 on the bottom. You can see it on the bottom. Is that 17? What is that? 1760? That's an L. L. Damn it, man. I thought it was an I. It's not sig. I don't know. One of you geniuses in the chat can tell us what year that is. A lot of times in the 1700s, they were still using Roman numerals instead of the actual Arabic numerals. 1740. Thank you, Graybeard. So here's Universal History right here, Volume 1. This chart inside this book shows here are the 10 patriarchs and their sons: Adam, Seth, Enos, Canaan, Mahalalel, Jared, Enoch, Methuselah, Lamech. Then Adam dies. Enoch is translated. Or Enoch, he's Etana. He's the one that flew up into the sky on the Phoenix. That's I showed you in the Seals video. He is Etana. He leaves behind the divine instructions to the Apkallu. And the Apkallu are the guardians who protect kingship on earth. And they begin, once Enoch ascends, then the 7 kings begin their rule over the Sumerian Pentapolis. And in the 670th year of their reign, same number Nostradamus told us about, that the Phoenix comes. The Phoenix came as Typhon and destroyed the reign of the 7 kings in 2239 BC in the year 1656. We have other videos about that. But here's the timeline right here. Goes through all the patriarchs and when their sons were born and shows that Methuselah dies in 1656. Why is that important? Because in the book of Genesis and in the chronological records of the book of the upright, in the book of the upright, which is Ha'ashur, this is the book of Jasher, not the forgeries, but the actual 4 copies that were found in Calcutta and Gonza of Persia. The book of Jasher specifically states that Methuselah died in the year 969 of his life, which happened to be the 1656th year of the pre-flood world. And after he died, the flood swept over the earth. So here we have more confirmation. This is ancient Seder Olam. This is a 2,000-year-old text. This is Hebrew, and this is Hebrew before the rabbinical corruptions. Please learn how to separate from Hebrew and the rabbinical. The rabbinical corruptions that I've discussed in the past, I've showed you books that talk about it from 300 and 400 years ago, where they're accusing Jewish rabbis of falsifying the chronology of the world. I have showed these videos and showed the pages from old books where there was their pet peeve, showing, hey man, don't go by the don't go by the Jewish calendar. The Jewish calendar is a 450-year-old imposition. It did not exist 500 years ago. It was totally invented to throw the Christians off and to make it look like Bar Kokhba was the Messiah at the Bar Kokhba rebellion in 134 AD. So here's the book of Jasher here. Can't judge a book by its cover. The book of Jasher is massive. The book of Jasher is 1/3 of the Old Testament itself. It's huge. It's 1/3 of the Old Testament itself. And it's nothing but a year-by-year chronology of everything that happened in the first 2,555 years of world history, starting with Adam and Eve being ousted from Eden. That's what this book is about. It is a chronological record of 2,555 years. This is Seder Olam. Seder Olam is a chronological record. It's a Hebrew chronological record. What do we have in Seder Olam? We have Noah's flood. Noah's flood in the year 1656. These are just data points, guys. But the more you have, remember Franz Boas, record enough facts, and the answers will fall like ripe fruit. That's Seder Olam. Now, a dissertation on sacred chronology. You guys know I love my chronology books. So this is from the 1800s. In this chart, we have the Hebrew version, and chronology is the oldest, providing us the 1656 years of pre-flood history, pre-flood period, 1656 being divisible by 138, a Phoenix number. Again, here's a different way of showing the same chart. From Adam to Noah, 1656 years at the bottom. This is a chronology book from the 1800s. And this is R. van de Broek. A pretty good book, The Myth of the Phoenix. He basically put together everything he could find from old books about the Phoenix. Oh, I just saw Internal Visions. Internal Visions, you need to get with Jasmine or Allie, because we do have alternate ways of getting in. If you don't have the standard payment type deals, yeah, we work with everybody. You just got to get with get with one of us. There's all kinds of ways of doing stuff. Yeah, some people have had a hard time trying to get in different things, man. And we even do snail mail. So, in Myth of the Phoenix, we have in Hesiod, the phoenix is the symbol of a cyclical event. It says the total lifespan of 12 phoenixes covers the duration of the present world period. What in the hell did this man just say? The total lifespan of 12 phoenixes. We know the number for Phoenix is 138. If you take 138 times 12, you get 1656. And this man got this by studying Hesiod, Works and Days, from 800 BC. The total lifespan of 12 phoenixes covers the duration of the present world period. From this, it follows that in Hesiod, a fixed lifespan and a parallelism with the sun, a periodic renewal, are already assumed. So I'm going to have to exit out of this real quick, because this means I need to show you something else really quick. Yeah, I got to show you something else, because I need to show you while you're looking at it. He said 12 phoenixes is the duration of our present world age. Well, I've already covered those 12 phoenixes in the first 4 videos. So let me share my screen and show that. Yeah, it's crazy. So crazy. All right. Check this out. So there's 583 BC right here. Wait a minute. Can y'all see it? Okay. See, there's 583 BC right there. 552 years later is 1135 BC. 552 years later, 1687 BC. 552 years before that, I didn't mean later, I meant before. Before that is 2239 BC. This is the Great Flood, the day the sky fell. This entire period, 552 plus 552 plus 552 is 12 phoenixes. It's exactly 1,656 years. So 3 phoenix cycles create an age of the world. An age of the world is 1656. I'm not telling you that. He just told you that. Hesiod, who said that the present age of the world. And when did he live? He lived right here, right where my cursor is. He lived right here. Where is my cursor? Oh, there it is. He lived right here. 800 BC, right around this area. 12 phoenixes. That's not Jason telling you that. You're going to see other writers that tell you the same thing about 1656 years. Let's get to it. Go back to that. We're still in the first file. File number 1. All right. Share my screen. I'm getting good at this. Smoke them if you got them. I saw that. Now, here is The Secrets of Time by Dr. Stephen Jones. I've talked about this book a lot. He's a chronologist. He's a really good one. He has amassed the material from the Book of Jasher, the Book of Jubilees, the Assyrian eponyms, and the Bible, and he's got a whole chronological. His book is on chronology. It's fantastic. Yeah, he didn't get any dates wrong, and my chronology is independent of his, meaning I got totally different sources and a totally different way of coming up with the same dates. Because I go by the Phoenix chronology, which is every 138 years. He doesn't mention the number 138 anywhere in his book. He didn't know anything about the 138-year period at all. But he got all the exact same dates from totally different sources. In Secrets of Time, we find that his conclusion is that the Great Flood, there it is, the Great Flood. Noah's sons marry Methuselah's granddaughters. Methuselah dies age 969. The flood begins. The ground is cursed after 4 times 414 years. How interesting he never discovered the 138. Even when there is a Jewish legend that angels were banished from heaven for 138 years because they warned men that God was going to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. Even though that Jewish tradition exists, he never put it together. 414 that you see down there, what he calls a cursed earth period, 414 is 138 times 3. 4 of these periods equals 1656 years. So a biblical chronologist going by all the early pseudepigraphical and biblical manuscripts came up with the exact same thing. The year of the world, 1656. It doesn't mean the world 1656. It means a calendar started on year 1. So we're going to ascertain what year 1 is, because according to him, in his chronology, year 1 is right here. 3895 BC. Starts off as year 0 and ends as year 1. 3895 BC. But we'll get to that later. So here is engineer David Davidson, 1924, The Great Pyramid, Its Divine Message. Here's my copy of The Secrets of Time. Yeah, it's huge, guys. It's huge. All chronology. Secrets of Time by Stephen Jones. Also, I got this massive book. I know Riyadh's jealous. I got the hardback. He's got the paperback. This is engineer David Davidson, The Great Pyramid, Its Divine Message, with H. Alder Smith. Another massive book. in this book from 1924, David Davidson conveys, didn't know anything about the cursed earth system, didn't know anything about none of this stuff. He found Egyptian references to day counts that added up to a 414 month period of 30 days each. Incidentally, he also identifies that the ancient Egyptians knew of a calendar that started a 1,656 year period. And in the book, he calls it AK. Do you see the designation AK? Oh, damn it. You see the designation AK right here on the bottom? This is engineer David Davidson's Anno Calendaris. That's what he calls it, because it's to him, Anno Calendaris is basically the same thing as Anno Mundi, Annus Mundi, but he's calling it AK because Annus Mundi is Latin and basically concerns the Alexandrian library scholars' attempt to put back the history of the world. But what David Davidson found was that the ancient Egyptians must have known about this calendar way before the Greeks came and built Alexandrian library, because of many of their traditions and papyri have evidence of the knowledge of a 414 and a 1,656 month period. Remember, there was a lot of confusion with the Egyptians. The Egyptians count a month as a year. So he called it AK, Anno Calendaris, meaning it's an unknown calendar, but whoever owned it, it began 1,656 years before Egyptian history. So, pretty interesting. That's David Davidson. Put this book away. Oh, I'm going to have a mess of books here in a little while, but that's okay. So now I will share my screen so you can read some of these citations with me. Just a few. I'm not going to overwhelm you, but you need to know these old books and these researchers that I've just cited, they are not alone. Look at this. Jewish and Christian tradition relate that the deluge occurred in the 1656 year of the pre-flood calendar, as we see here in the Annus Mundi dating. Pay attention. Thank you, Gobo Box. Pay attention. Oh, somebody snuck something in. Hold on. Who is that? Awake Errant. Thank you, sir. Yeah, somebody snuck that in. Oh, I must have been talking too much. So, Augustine in City of God, it's like 16 centuries ago, wrote that the flood occurred in the year 1656. So the flood happened in the 1656th year of the world, according to Arnoldus de Villanova in Long Livers, 1720. Oh, 1721. Book's older than I thought. Here's biblical chronologist Stephen Jones. We just showed that he dates the flood not only in the 1656 year, but he also pinpoints the Phoenix year that we've showed, 2239 BC. Remember, Dr. Stephen Jones doesn't know anything about the Phoenix history. Doesn't know anything about the 138-year timeline, the 552-year time, nothing. And yet he perfectly dated the Great Flood, the day the sky fell, the collapse of the vapor canopy, the Typhon destruction to 2239 BC, exactly where we have it in Archaics. No deviation whatsoever. Two entirely different corpuses of chronological data arriving on the same date. Can't make this shit up. Adding up the life-death spans of the 10 patriarchs of Genesis and the book of Jasher adds up to 1656. We've already showed that. Here is Archbishop James Ussher. That's this big book here. It's huge and it's heavy. This is Archbishop. This is Annals of the World. Archbishop James Ussher. It's over 360 years ago. It too is a massive book. It's not a small book, guys. The print is very small. This is a giant book like the size of a Bible. In this book, James Ussher, Archbishop of Armagh in Ireland, completed his famous Annals of the World, deduced from the origin of time. He completed the work. Listen, he was destined to do this. He completed the work in 1654 AD. In this book, right here, he dates the flood in the year 1656. Archbishop James Ussher, who wrote this book, died in the year 1656 AD in our calendar. He was meant to write this book. If I die in 2040, I'll be happy. That's right. He checked out in 1656. So I have this book too from the 1800s. This is a chronologist, Alex Gleason. In 1890, this is a reprint, but he wrote real small. This is all typeface, pretty small too. Got a huge bibliography. This is chronologist Alex Gleason, 1890. He wrote this book showing that we live on a flat plane, that we do not live on a planet, that we live on an absolute flat plane. And he was also a chronologist. He wrote that the flood occurred in the year 1656. I'm going to show you the title page right now. I'm going to show you the title page. Let me switch over. This is his book, Alex Gleason. It's a fantastic read. This is his book from 1890. Fantastic read, guys. It's a big book. Don't get me wrong. It's got a lot in there. This is Alex Gleason. He wrote Flood in the year 1656. All right. Ken Johnson has a doctorate of theology. He's also a chronologist in ancient, and he wrote a book called Ancient Post-Flood History. He also dates the Great Flood to the year 1656. That's this guy here. Ancient Post-Flood History. And he also agrees the Great Flood occurred in the year 1656. And remember, why all this is important. It's important because in the fourth video, in the video where we were covering the Typhon flood of Noah, we already proved that the year 1656 going this way in time is exactly 2239 BC going the other way, in the other direction. This is where two different timelines collide going forward and backward in time. Our year 2239 BC is the exact same year as 1656 Anno Mundi, or as engineer David Davidson says, Anno Calendaris. So this is why it's important, because all we have to do is add 2239 BC. All we have to do is add 1656 years to it to provide year one, year zero, year one, the very beginning of the calendar. But we'll get to that. So about 1,000 years ago, Rashi's statement that every 1656 years, a similar disaster occurs. Well, that identifies 3895 BC as year one, as a cataclysm similar to the Great Flood. This is just a different way of saying the same thing that Hesiod said in 800 BC, that our present age is the duration of 12 phoenixes. Well, 138 times 12 is 1656 years. It's the exact same way. All right. You guys have graduated the first file. Congratulations. File number 1 of 11 files has been graduated. Some of these are going to go a little faster, some of them not so. Some of them not so. We are now going to enter the realm of Hans Bellamy. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Fascinating guy here. Share my screen. Now I'm about to go through some citations with you guys. I'm about to show you, I'm about to give you the business. Hans Bellamy, over 110 years ago, Moons, Myths, and Man. These are some things that he said. Okay. So I think that's Yosipon Mika Ben Gurion. In the work, Sagen der Juden, this is Sagas of the Jews, Volume 1, illustrates the memory of repeated deluges and the necessity of propping the unstable firmament to prevent further cataclysms. The people of that time said, "We know that each eon, literally once every 1656 years, the vault of heaven breaks to pieces. Let therefore strong pillars be built as supports, one in the north, one in the south, and one in the west." It's describing the building of the Great Pyramids, which according to this account, and Hans Bellamy calls them pyramids later. According to this account, the Great Pyramid complex was built before the flood in order to stop the firmament from collapsing, like a frequency generator, something to actually stop because the firmament was considered to be solid, like glass, but it was ice. And they needed to stop it from fracturing, because once the stress fractures passed over the whole sky, iceberg-sized pieces of the firmament will fall down. That's what happened. It's called the Typhon destruction. It's exactly what happened. It's the Great Flood of Noah. But according to this account right here, they knew the time was coming, so they built the Great Pyramid complex in order to stop this phenomenon of basically the sky falling, which is caused by the phoenix. And it happened every 1656 years. Like, you can't make this shit up. All right. So Bellamy says both the Bennu, bird of ancient Egypt, and the phoenix functioned as symbols of the events and conditions belonging to the beginning of the world. What is the story of Adam and Eve? The beginning. What is the phoenix about? It is about cycles of destruction and renewal. It later became a symbol of resurrection. We can now make another attempt to render Genesis chapter 1, verses 1 through 2 in clearer language. What he's talking about is the Bible begins like this in Genesis. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. It is an all-inclusive statement. It's done. Then verse 2 describes something else. And the earth became and the earth became covered in darkness, and the waters were over the face of the deep, or something like that. It's a total destruction. The very first verse shows that everything was done. Creation was just fine. The second verse introduces darkness and chaos. This is given rise in doctrinal circles. Uh, um, um, it's given rise to what's called gap theory. Gap theory is the idea that a vast destruction and a vast period of history is in between Genesis 1:1 and Genesis 1:2. That's gap theory. This is what he's talking about. What is expressed by these two verses is something like this. In the beginning of the present eon, the Elohim, or rather Yahweh, after the other Elohim had tried their prowess in vain, conquered a primeval bisexual chaos monster, Tohu Wa Bohu. This is like the Hebrew version of Tiamat. Now, in a primary meaning, the doomed tertiary satellite. In those days, the earth as we know it was not yet created. Only a primeval ocean and a primeval landmass existed. Tohu Wa Bohu. It's only found twice in the entire Bible. In its secondary meaning, the Bohu. Thank you, Jersey. The Bohu land sank into the Tohu waters when the deluge came after the undoing of the Tohu Wa Bohu dragon. The breakdown products of the dying satellite spread a dense pall of darkness over the Tiham. That's the waters. So he's describing something appearing in the sky that brought about a destruction. However, we have evidence, and I'm going to show it to you, from somewhere else in the Bible. It's the only other place in the Bible Tohu Wa Bohu is used, and it's describing how the cities were laid waste, showing that period between Genesis 1:1 and 1:2 was a massive destruction, and humans already occupied this before Adam and Eve ever appeared. Human cities were already wiped off the map. We'll get to that in a minute. So, Genesis chapter 1, 3 through 5, and God said, let there be light. And God divided the light from the darkness. And God called the day light, and the darkness he called night. What is meant is, after a time, the thick cloud cover came down in tremendous hailstones and cloud bursts. And the difference between an unbroken light time and a unbroken nighttime became distinctly marked. Hans Bellamy is of the opinion, as so many others are, is that the Genesis story of the 6 days of creation is actually a destruction that is so perfect. A previous world here that was destroyed so totally that the survivors were naked. They totally lost their infrastructure. They lost everything. And the world was a different place, and you had to toil. It was cursed. You had to plant things. Food wasn't readily available. You had to work for it. This is what it was describing. The Bible starts with a scant account of the creation of the heaven and earth. It ends with a detailed vision of the end of this heaven and this earth, and the making of a new heaven and a new earth. The new heaven and new earth is what Adam and Eve found themselves in. The snow mentioned in the above passages, I didn't read those passages, but in the cataclysm, after the chunks of ice fall from the firmament, when the firmament falls like glass, is the day the sky fills. This is the time it happened right before Adam and Eve, and in that time it was followed by great snow. But toward the warmer parts of the world, it falls as rain. But toward the colder regions of the world, it falls as snow. So the snow mentioned in the above passages is really wreckage from the cold, shattered firmament, which is professedly built of terrible ice, according to Ezekiel chapter 122 and various Jewish myths. So We're going to have another reference to Bellamy here in a little while. Oh, I already have it. I got it right here. I got it right here. Let me share this. And then we'll be done with this file. Oh, my stomach growled, and I'm nowhere near done. This sucks. So Harold Wilkins, it's in this book. Matter of fact, man. Oh, you know what? All along I had this book right here. All along I had this book. I didn't even show it to you. Yeah, here's Bellamy's book, Moons, Myth, and Man. I showed it on screen, but I've got it right here. All those citations we just read. But in this book, Mysteries of Ancient South America, one of my favorite authors. I've talked about him a lot. I got two of his books right here. Here's one of them. This is Harold T. Wilkins. He wrote in the 1950s, did all his research in the 40s. Really fascinating material. But in Mysteries of Ancient South America, Harold T. Wilkins, he's citing Hans Bellamy. And he wrote on the authority of Hans Bellamy and Hans Horberger of Vienna, Austria, that both, this is what he said in this book, both the fall of man and the great flood of Noah were caused by the same thing. And it was an object. He said a close approach of an object in the sky that collapsed the canopy. And this is what caused the great destruction of Eden, leaving Adam and Eve bereft, naked, and cursed. And it also caused the flood of Noah, collapsing the pre-flood vapor canopy world. So this is over 120 years ago, Hans Bellamy, and 150 years ago, Hans Horberger. This was their theories. It was picked up in the 1950s, 80 years ago, by Harold T. Wilkins in his books. They all published the same thing, that some giant object came too close to the firmament and the firmament shattered and it collapsed and it totally changed the world. And this is what the original fall of man was. We had cities, infrastructure, we had technology, we had everything. We were here. And this happened. And it was the fall of man. Now, where all this is dated, as we've seen, was 3895 BC. Let's see, later caused the close approach of a gigantic satellite, and that its glaciosphere fragmented and pieces fell to Earth, exposing a layer of red earth, which in turn fell on the Earth in a rain like blood. This is mystery. Yeah, this isn't Jason telling you that red rain, red mud, and red dirt fell to the ground. These are all these old books, and these old books they always cite even older books. It's always the same thing. Every time we have this great world cataclysm deal, it's also red rain, red mud, and red dirt falling from the sky. Signature of Phoenix. And you guys, I believe, have graduated file number 2. File number 3 is short, but it's Velikovsky, the one that no one wants to cite. Well, some people do. I think Michael Tsarion cites Velikovsky quite a bit, but most people avoid Velikovsky because Velikovsky collapses that uniformitarian bullshit. Share my screen. Get off into this Velikovsky now. Oh, I'm going to get some jealous people now. I already got people jealous of my book collection in my library. But man, you just don't know. I've got Ages in Chaos. I've got all the Velikovsky books. Yeah, I've got the Sea Peoples. What is that? Oh, man. Heresies. I can't read them from here, man. I just can't read them from here. Damn it. I ought to just get up and go get them. I can't read them. I still can't. Their titles are too small. So anyway, I got all the Velikovsky books. Here's Velikovsky's. Very few people know he wrote this, In the Beginning. Really good book. A banger. Let me show you what Velikovsky says in this book. All right. So right here, so the sun shone permanently on the earth, and the Garden of Eden, placed in the east, was, it must be conceived, under perpetual rays of the dawn. The earth was not watered by rain, but mist ascended from the ground, condensed as dew upon the leaves. These are vapor canopy conditions. The plants looked only to the earth for nourishment. Man was of exceedingly great stature. The dimensions of man's body were gigantic. Get this, this is crazy. His appearance was unlike that of later men. His body was overlaid with a horny skin. What? What? Sounds like the theory here, Flying Serpents and Dragons, written by a retired U.S. intelligence cryptologist. This book cites a bunch of ancient history showing that humans, the original human prototype on this world, was reptilian. But when the reptilian atmosphere is taken away, they needed a different type of avatar to survive in the cursed periods. When's the cursed period? It's right now. I tell you guys all the time, there's only two phases. Our experience in the biosphere has two phases. One of them is Ice Age. We're at the very end of an Ice Age right now that started in the Dark Ages. That's what the Dark Ages was. The reptilians, according to this ex-intelligence officer who is a cryptologist for the Department of Defense, this guy here and the NSA, this guy here put this whole thing together using ancient text, showing that, man, there's a reptilian race here. And they genetically modified their own species and mixed it with hominids. And it was very recent. This is not hundreds of thousands of years ago. It was recent. And they did this in several experiments until they found avatars that they liked, that they could walk among the surface on and hide themselves with the very race they created, which was modern Homo sapiens sapiens. So there's no evolution here. It's genetic modification by a superior reptilian species that literally made us so they can disguise themselves as us. We're made from reptilian and mammalian DNA mixed together, according to these traditions, according to these researchers. This is R.A. Boole. That's his name right there. And this is a fascinating book. But there's only two phases here, guys. We're in an ice age now. But when a vapor canopy comes back, I told you that tertiary field, anybody who's truly of reptilian DNA, they can't hide anymore. There's no more shape shifting. All it's done with. In the high pressure environment of a tertiary field, it's a totally different arithmetic here. The ability to hide is gone. What you are, you will appear as. So anyway, I just found it really interesting that this guy's theory here and all the stuff he's put together, very similar to what David Icke has been promoting for 40-something years. Here is, right here, in Immanuel Velikovsky, references to Jewish traditions that the original human type had horny skin. Wow. Isn't that something? Don't get excited when I said horny skin. I know some of y'all got your mind in the gutter like I do. I might have to go out tonight. But a day came and the celestial illumination ceased. The sun had grown dark. The instant Adam became guilty of disobedience, the sun became dark. What is that? It's just another way of saying the sun darkened. That's the Phoenix phenomenon. What year do we have? 3895 BC, which was on the 138-year Phoenix timeline. Everything fits. I got some laughter out of that one. I thought I was going to slip one in on you. I guess it didn't work. You people are paying too much attention. All right. So the flames of the ever-turning sword terrified Adam. We're going to talk about that sword here in a minute. Remember, in the book of Genesis, there is a sword that turns every which way to prevent Adam and Eve from going back into Eden. In another legend, it is told that the celestial light shone a little in the darkness because there's a vapor canopy. And then the celestial light ceased to the consternation of Adam. The illumination of the first period never returned. You can imagine when a population of people only have memories of a sky that has a sun. They have adapted their culture, their traditions, all their books, everything they've ever known is how to live under a sky that has a sun. So you can imagine their consternation when the vapor canopy returns. When the vapor canopy returns, and all of a sudden Greenland is got forests and trees, and there's no more ice on it, and Antarctica starts sprouting reptiles and amphibians and all kinds of stuff. There's no ice caps in Antarctica like we've seen on the 550-year-old maps. Yeah, you can imagine the people of that time. It's like, damn, man, they can adapt, but their children can. They can cope, but they can't really adapt to the new conditions. Let's see. Oh, my stomach, man. I am hungry. What the hell? How's this happening? Dang, can y'all hear that? That was my stomach. That was not thunder. All right, so the Adamites, this is Immanuel Velikovsky in going through the Jewish and rabbinical writings. The Adamites, the antediluvial men, the pre-flood men, were most probably not the first human beings on the planet. Even admitting that by expulsion from the Garden of Eden is allegorized a catastrophe which quite destroyed mankind prior to the Great Flood. Do you see this? The Jewish tradition in the Talmud and in the Midrashic texts, as cited by Immanuel Velikovsky, who was a Russian Jew, literally tell us that the story of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden is actually a euphemism for a world-destroying cataclysm. Meaning the Annus Mundi calendar, the Phoenix calendar, of 138-year periods all the way to 2040 and then 2178 is a calendar that literally starts with the entire world being destroyed. The book of the Genesis timeline of present day humanity literally starts right after a total systemic reset. Totally changes the dynamic. Humans weren't made in innocence. Humans weren't made naked and had all these things available to them, and food was so free and all that, and they got along with all the animals. A vapor canopy had just collapsed. That's what happened. A vapor canopy had just collapsed 3895 BC. In post-collapse, now the sun is out and it's burning up the ground, and people and Adam and Eve are told they're cursed. They're gonna have to work the earth and plow the fields and plant and do all kinds of harvest. And they didn't have to work before. Why? Because under a vapor canopy, they eat everything. Food is everywhere. What else do we find out about vapor canopy high pressure environments under ultraviolet light? What else did we find out in earlier presentations? When I went to Glen Rose, Texas, and I talked to the scientists that were running the hyperbaric chambers where they were doing experiments on vapor canopy conditions, what did they tell me? I did a whole video about it. They were shocked. When they replicated vapor canopy conditions, the earthworms, the beetles, the fruit flies, and the plants all grew huge. However, it was a completely accidental discovery that they found out that rattlesnake venom changes its constitution under high pressure and ultraviolet light. and it's not toxic anymore. The venom is neutralized. So it's like this is not here. So that's Adam and Eve. They're cursed. Why are they cursed? Because they're not in a high pressurized environment anymore. They're not under a vapor canopy anymore. So the rattlesnakes, after the asps, the rattlesnakes, the adders, the moccasins, yeah, after the collapse of the vapor canopy under the sun, it's a different biosphere. Now all these insects and snakes are toxic. The poisons will kill, the venoms will kill you. But and they weren't used to that. So to Adam and Eve, they had been cast out into a world of curse. And this is where the idea of cursed earth periods came from in the Phoenix timeline. It's crazy, guys. Remember I told you, man, everything must fit, and it does. It fits perfectly together. All right, let's see. Oh, it's hard to think with my stomach growling. See, human beings rising from some catastrophe, bereft of memory of what had happened, regarded themselves as created from the dust of the earth. All knowledge about the ancestors, who they were, and in what interstellar space they lived, was wiped away from the memory of the few survivors. Same thing Plato talks about when the Egyptians told Solon, "Oh Solon, you Greeks are so young. You make a big deal out of one flood, but there have been many previous floods." And that every time somebody remembers, thank you, Jay-Z, bro. Every time you remember one flood, there are many that you have forgotten because all your writings are wiped away. And the only survivors who build cities later are the goat farmers high up in the mountains. That's what he was told. That's what they were told. Jason, read this short book when you have a chance. Your Faith is Your Fortune, Neville Goddard. I've never read Neville Goddard before, but so many of you mention him. I understand Neville Goddard's like from the 40s and 50s, but Judge Thomas Troward published his material in 1902. That's why I like to cite him. He's like the OG of the New Thought movement. So Thomas Troward was before Neville Goddard. So was the Edinburgh Lectures on Mental Science. So and so many others that I cite. But you know what? I'll check it out, Jay-Z. Thank you for the donation, man. I'm still recovering from moving into my new house. Oh my God, I spent so much money, but I appreciate it, man. It does help. So Your Faith is Your Fortune. Watch this. Screenshot that. I haven't read one of his books, but I have listened to 3 or 4 of his videos. All right, let me get back in. Let me get back into this. Okay, the Talmudic rabbinical tradition believes that before Adam was created, the world was more than once inhabited and more than once destroyed. Hey, it's really interesting that it was the Jewish people that preserved the integrity of these traditions. It's my opinion that the Jewish culture is as powerful as it is. And they've been doing the things. They're very shrewd. They're very cunning. They got their hands in everything. They're running the entire show. And yet they have most of the people of the world not even aware of it. Yeah, people who are awake know exactly what's going on. But yeah, they have done a fantastic job, but they've done this over and over and over and over. And if you read the contract between them and the demon that popped out of the burning bush on Mount Sinai, you read a contract from a God that is literally promising them that they will always be looked out for. As long as you follow and do exactly what I command, you will always get all these things, and I will always do all these things. And not one of the promises from that demon had anything to do with ever going to heaven or ever even enjoying an afterlife. Everything promised to them was about everything that they would get in here, all the possessions. They were the wealth of nations. They would enslave peoples, but they would not be enslaved. They would do all kinds. It's crazy. It's a transactional contract between a group of people and a demon. And let me tell you something, they have fulfilled their role to a T, and that demon has kept its promise to them to a T. Read that contract. It's in the book of Exodus, and it's in the book of Second Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy means the second law. But anyway, we've talked about this in other videos. It's not the subject matter of this presentation. I just want to close out with that thought. They are genius at what they do. while all of us are just passing through, they're stuck here on a loop over and over and over, over and over and over. So that's the okay. We're done with that one. That was Immanuel Velikovsky, and now I do have. We're about to graduate the third file, but I do have something Velikovsky wants to share with us real quick. So let's see what Velikovsky's talking about. So Velikovsky cites Abraham Rockenbach, might be Rockenbach, who was the chair of Greek and mathematics at the University of Frankfurt, Germany, when in the year 1602, he wrote that in the 600th year of Noah, year 1656 of the world, a comet appeared in the skies and was the cause of the great flood. So that's in this book I just showed you, Immanuel Velikovsky, In the Beginning on page 42. Remember, comet doesn't mean the same thing 300 and 400 years ago as it means to us today. It does not mean the same thing. A comet was any unknown celestial body. So Velikovsky, in his manuscript, In the Beginning, demonstrates that the loss of Eden and curse concerns a major civilization-destroying catastrophe. Later, the few survivors did not even know their origin. That's Adam and Eve. They're naked. They've lost their entire infrastructure. That's Adam and Eve. Now, in Phoenix presentations a couple years ago, I was explaining to you guys about the Cro-Magnon. Nothing makes sense about the Cro-Magnon. We're being gaslit by anthropologists about the Cro-Magnon. The Cro-Magnon, we're not like the Neanderthal. The Neanderthal were shorter with long, thick bones and real long arms. The Cro-Magnon were not. The Cro-Magnon men were very, very tall, on average 6 foot and over. The Cro-Magnon females were 5 foot to 5'1" on average. The disparity in heights in their skeletal structure and the type of skeletons they had showed that they lived a sedentary life. It doesn't make sense. If the Cro-Magnon were primitive, as the theory of natural selection and evolution purport, and they were a previous Homo sapien sapien, then why were they found with trousers and literal button-down pants, wearing dresses, sophisticated shoes and sandals? They had trousers and belts. Not only that, but their skeletal structure proves that they had a very long period of time they lived a sedentary life. Sedentary means relaxed. It means they had machinery do their work. They had all kinds of things. They must have had an infrastructure that was phenomenal. But that's not how we found Cro-Magnon. We did not dig up Cro-Magnon graves from ranches and ancient farmlands and all of this. We didn't. The few burials that we found of like Magdalenian and the other branches of the Cro-Magnon, we found them buried in caves. But what we found them with were objects that doesn't make sense. They weren't primitive. Even some of the carved, very elaborate tools and pipes. Their mode of dress was very sophisticated. It doesn't make sense. It's a total anachronism, but it does make sense. When you remove all the uniformitarian dressing, it makes perfect sense who the Cro-Magnon are. They only sound alien because we named them after a cave in France, Cro-Magnon. But they're just us. They are the people of Adam and Eve. Some of them survived the 3895 BC world destroying cataclysm. They're us. How do we know? The men were tall and had very short arms. That's the opposite of Neanderthal. They had short arms because for a long period of time, the birth-death cycle, over like 1,000-year period, the skeletal arms get shorter and shorter and shorter because in their infrastructure, they had developed tools and machines of such utility that after a period of life-death birth cycles, the babies are being born with shorter and shorter arms. They're not needed. This is what happens. The women are very petite. Why? They don't need to be big. They don't need to be tall, big-boned women like in Africa because they're not fighting against nature. They're not fighting against animals. They're not doing any hard labor. The females really have it made. They're very petite, feminine skeletons. And the men are very tall, but with short arms. Their skulls are a little bit larger. The CC's, their brain capacity was slightly larger, about on average from about 15 to 17% larger than modern day Homo sapiens sapiens. They were thinkers. Whoever these people were, they lost their entire infrastructure. And as I'll show you, there's a passage in the Bible that even shows that they had cities. They were sophisticated. Proof of the sophistication is that after they lost their entire infrastructure, they made homes out of the best places to make homes. That was the caves of the earth. It's exactly what we find in the book of Revelation. When the phoenix appears in the sixth seal, it literally says the sun will turn black as sackcloth of hair, the moon will turn red as blood, and the sky will roll like a scroll, and the stars will fall like untimely figs. And the people of the earth will hide in the dens and in the caves and in the mountains and hide from the face of God. It's the exact same thing we find in the future prophecies, in the prophetic material of the book of Revelation. Men are hiding in the caves. Cro-Magnon were found in the caves, but they weren't found with primitive shit. One of the really unique things that's been found about the Cro-Magnon was that they were a sentimental race and they buried the objects of people's possessions with them. The burials were sophisticated. They took red ochre. Why red? Why was the color red significant to the Cro-Magnon? Why did they feel that every person that died needed to be put into a fetal position and often put with their significant other for whatever reason, and then their possessions were put around them because they believed in an afterlife. But then red ochre was painted all over them. What does the phoenix do? According to the ancients, the phoenix sprayed cinnamon all over the world. To us, we think of cinnamon toast. Oh, it tastes delicious. It's sugary, but that's because we add sugar. Real cinnamon tastes like dirt. I know, because I had a bad habit as a kid of trying to taste everything. And I learned at an early age that raw cinnamon tastes like shit. You got to put sugar with it. But the ancients believed that the phoenix flew over the world and sprayed cinnamon. So here we have the Cro-Magnon burying their dead lovingly with red ochre. This was a signal. This was a significant trait of these people that we don't know anything about, who had advanced skeletal structures, advanced articles of clothing, often being found with textiles and weaves that were superior, and yet they were found in the caves, hiding, not building communities and villages. Cro-Magnon weren't. They were effed off. They were effed off to the point that Neanderthal were still alive. And Neanderthal, don't abandon the uniformitarian bullshit. Neanderthal were quite recent. Neanderthal made a comeback against Cro-Magnon. They coexisted, and Cro-Magnon were sophisticated, technologically advanced, and they weren't worried about Neanderthal. And Neanderthal stayed the hell away from them. Well, they get shot. Oh yes, we have found, I've showed you on my channel, we have ancient bullet holes in aurochs, in bison, and even human skulls with bullet holes in it from the ancient world. Cro-Magnon were sophisticated, and the proof of that sophistication is in the artwork they left behind. Because the artwork they left behind in the caves is all they had left. When they lost their cities, they lost their families, the few survivors get together, they're in the caves, they've got nothing left but to be artistic. So as they faded into obscurity and died out, which they did, because even geneticists like Brian Sykes and many others have come to the conclusion that very little of the modern human genome derives from the Cro-Magnon. They died out. They died out because their whole entire infrastructure was gone and lost. They didn't know how to cope in the new world, but they drew these amazing pictures of animals on cave walls. But what's significant is they were so advanced in their aesthetics that they used the natural protuberances on the walls for the gazelles and the bison and the deer and the aurochs. When they painted, the walls themselves had the natural contours of the animal. They chose the protuberances on the cave wall to accentuate whatever animals they wanted to paint. They were very sophisticated, and they died out. In 4,000 and 5,000, well, no, about 5,000 years later, we got these pompous asses called uniformitarians that think they know everything, who practice exclusions and ignore an entire corpus of material in order to promote these silly little ideas and silly little dating systems and try to tell us that Cro-Magnon are 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 years old. It's so dumb. It's all so dumb. This Velikovsky, he wrote that the Talmudic texts teach that the world was successfully destroyed and inhabited before Adam. When in the 6th to 5th centuries BC, the Jews came into contact with the magnificent and old libraries of Babylon, they borrowed from chronological annals and composed their Genesis, corrupting the original story of Eden. They invented Adam and Eve and wrote that by disobedience their eyes were opened. They were ashamed of their nakedness, but that's not true. It wasn't because of their innocence. It wasn't because of their disobedience. This is the Jewish religiosity imposed upon the factors of the past. It's not true. The first people were naked and cursed because their infrastructure and their entire world had been destroyed, and they're now living in a biosphere they do not understand. They have to work for their food. They've got to toil. They got to plant. They got to be scared of the animals now. They get bit. They'll get stung. Yeah, they're scared of everything. It's a totally different world. So that's Velikovsky. We're done with Velikovsky now. Moving on up, like the Jeffersons, you guys have, that was two, I lied to y'all. I thought I had 11 files, but I forgot I had file number 2 and I had file number 2.1 because I had to fit it in. So there's 12 files, and we're done with 1, 2, and 2.1, and we're going to file number 3 right now. Introducing John Goodridge. This is a book from the 1700s, and it's about the Phoenix. Glad you guys are sticking with me today, man. Appreciate that. For those of you who want to catch up, we're talking about the year 3895 BC. But if you want to catch up, we have whole videos on the year 583 BC, and then 552 years earlier to 1135, fall of Atlantis, 552 years earlier to the fall of the children of the sun, the Ogygian deluge, 1687 BC, 552 years earlier to 2239 BC, the Great Flood, the Typhon, the day the sky fell. It is a 1656 year period. But when we flip that 1656 years to before the flood, we arrive at Adam and Eve being the survivors of a world that was just destroyed in 3895 BC. So let's see what Mr. Goodridge has to say. All right. Share screen. It's an old book here. The Phoenix, an essay, being an attempt to prove from history and astronomical calculations that the comet, which by its approximation to our Earth occasioned the change made at the fall and at the deluge. Look how many different ancient chronologists claim that the object that caused the great flood of Noah is the same thing that caused the fall of man, the Adam and Eve Eden story. And then there's Harold T. Wilkins from the 1950s, who claims that the same object that caused the fall of man not only caused the great flood, but Harold T. Wilkins is thus far the only researcher I know that actually claims it also caused a third world-destroying cataclysm, the Ogygian flood. Yeah, you can't make this up. Here's the two books right here I showed you of Harold T. Wilkins. This is Harold T. Wilkins right here. I've got more. I'll show it in a minute. Here's Harold T. Wilkins right here in this book, and the other one I'm going to show here in a little while. That's his premise is that the object deposited red mud, red earth, and red rain all over our world that caused massive tsunamis and earthquakes, all kinds of lithospheric displacement, subsidence, and upheaval. It was an object, and it's the same object. Harold T. Wilkins says whatever did the Adam and Eve reset also did the Noahic reset of the Great Flood of Typhon, and also he's the only one that went further and said also caused the Ogygian deluge. Yeah, man. So it's just crazy. It is amazing how much commiseration we get between all these ancient researchers who never even knew each other, didn't even live in the same periods of time. So here's John Goodridge. My design. This is an old book. All the S's are F's. So my design in the following essay is to show that a comet, remember, a comet was any celestial body that wasn't quite known, like Mars, Venus, Mercury, Jupiter, Saturn. So my design in the following essay is to show that a comet has been the cause of two grand catastrophes that have happened to this our Earth for the punishment of its inhabitants. That's that old religiosity. At the fall and at the deluge. Which comet, it is my intention to prove as far as I am able, is the real phoenix of the ancients. Well, I'll be damned. I'll be damned. You mean Jason of Archaics didn't make this shit up? He got it out of what? Old books? Oh, yeah, guys, I got a bunch of haters out there. They talk shit on their channels, too. Yeah, didn't make this up. This is from 1721. Look at that. What? The real phoenix. Whatever caused the fall of man and whatever caused the great flood of Noah was an object in the sky that I'm going to write a whole book about and try to prove to you was actually known to the ancients as the phoenix. Man, you can't make this shit up. Thank you, Terry. Thank you, Terry. I appreciate that. They're so dumb. Yeah, man. They're so dumb. Okay, now, this is Archaics 4.0. All the Archaics 4.0 videos are just like this. I'm not just the Phoenix videos. I have other Archaics 4.0 videos too. Anytime you see 4.0 on the title or on the thumbnail, it's deep chronological stuff. Now, quill drop. That's good stuff. Okay, that upon man's transgression, the change took place, of which I believe a comet was the cause. Before I quit the subject entirely, I shall endeavor to show the probability there is of tracing the comet from the fall to the deluge. Remember, we know this is a 1656-year period. He's claiming that whatever this object is, it's responsible for the beginning and the end of that period. but he's going to add a detail that's going to blow your mind. As Noah and his family would see the comet before they entered the ark, they would, of course, make it known to their posterity after the flood, and also what was the cause. I have before said that the comet which occasioned the change at the fall would likewise occasion the deluge. I have before said that the comet which occasioned the change at the fall would likewise occasion the deluge, which may be perhaps objected to by many because the 3 periods between both eras do not exactly agree with the chronology of that time. I think in the first place that the comet's periods must have been shorter before the deluge. Listen, before I show you this chart, pay attention to what this guy wrote in 1721. What he literally said. The 3 periods between both eras, the fall and the flood. The 3 periods. How did he know it was 3 periods and not 4? How did he know it wasn't 6 periods, 7 periods, 8 periods? How did he know that the Phoenix period was 3 periods between the fall and the flood? How did he know? I got to show it to you. I got to show it to you. Many of you already know what I'm going to show, but a lot of you don't. I got to hammer this in. Got to hammer this in. So how do I guess I gotta, all right. So I'm just going to stop that screen and share a new one. Share screen. Yeah. How did he know? The 3 periods between the fall and the flood. How did he know? Because he never mentioned them. But I'm about to show you a whole new chart. You guys have never seen this chart. It was made for this video. How did he know? Here's the age of Typhon, the pre-flood world. 1656 years right here. 1656 years of Genesis, the age of Typhon. Started 3895 BC. This is the fall. The fall. This is where Adam and Eve come out of this after the sun darkens. Eden is destroyed and they're cursed to be in the earth now. The vapor canopy world that they formerly enjoyed is now gone. It's totally gone. Now they can't just reach up and pick low-hanging fruit and eat. Because, you know, vapor canopies, that's what it is. Vapor canopy, everything grows. You can grow. Food is everywhere. But now snakes and sea insects, venom has to be feared. The ground has to be toiled. You got to plant seed and harvest. This is it. 3895 BC is the beginning of the Annus Mundi calendar. It is the start of Anno Calendaris of engineer David Davidson. Here it is. Here's the first period, 552 years. The second period, 552 years. And the third period, 552 years. How did he know that the pre-flood world was 3 epochs? How did he know? He said it was the same object, Phoenix, that caused the fall and caused the flood. And that's exactly what we have here in the age of Typhon. This is it. It's also called the age of Vulcan in the Phoenician version, but it's the same thing as the pre-flood world. And then it's replicated in the historical record. We're now leaving the traditional mythological record and we're going to the historical record. And in the historical record, the age of Phoenix is so well documented. I've been able to publish multiple books and over 60, 70 videos just showing the timeline. Here it is, Age of the Phoenix, post-flood world is also 1656 years of world history. And now we have 552 years to the Ogygian deluge. Right there. 552 years to the fall of Atlantis. the conquest of ancient Ireland, the vanishing of the sea peoples, the start of the great Mediterranean Dark Age, 1135 BC. All the way to 583 BC, the sun darkens, predicted by Thales of Miletus, and the Delphic Oracle implements a new Pythian calendar. And all kinds of other shit happened. But here it is. But the author of this book doesn't mention any of these events. 583, 1135, he didn't know anything about the 552 year period. And he doesn't even go by the chronology of 1656 years. He just knew from his own research in looking at even older books before the 1700s that he had pulled a citation from somewhere that led him to believe that the pre-flood world, the distance from the fall of Eden to the destruction of Noah, the Noahic flood, was 3 epochs. How did he know? He got it. He nailed it. He effing nailed it. All right. So let me go back to that file for John Goodridge. It blows my mind, man. It's incredible. How did he know? He literally said, I'm going to show it one more time. I got to show it one more time to hammer it in, even though I'm hungry and I want to move this forward. He said it right here, which may be perhaps objected to by many because the 3 periods between both eras, between the fall and the flood, 3 periods. How the hell did he know? Blows my mind. So he continues, but although Moses takes no notice of what was the immediate cause of the deluge, there are many passages in ancient history to be found which declare that a comet did pass by at that time and was the cause. Remember, a comet is any celestial unknown body. Mr. Whiston, this is William Whiston, a contemporary of Isaac Newton. Mr. Whiston says that Hevelius, in his Comatographia, bears testimony of several ancient authors who speak of the direful effects of the comet that appeared in the reign of Typhon. There it is. That is, at the deluge. What? What? Are you saying that Jason of Archaics didn't make up the fact that Typhon and Phoenix are interchangeable and that the ancients understood this as well? Because that's been levied at me as well. Here it is from an old book. The Typhon destruction is the flood of Noah, the deluge. Or immediately before it. Nay, he says further that in ancient books and records there are accounts of a comet's passing by at the flood. Yeah, man. Can't make this shit up. I didn't. Fifthly, to prove that the comet is that so much celebrated emblem of antiquity, perhaps of the resurrection also, the phoenix. His conclusion is the comet that all these ancient authors are claiming caused the fall of Eden, and the comet that all these ancient books and authors he's citing caused the great flood of Noah. He is literally concluding in this book that comet is what the ancients also referred to as Typhon and the Phoenix. Yeah, man, that's John Goodridge. We ain't gonna argue with John. Among the many things delivered by Noah, I believe the Phoenix to be one. Yeah. The survivors of the Typhon flood would have taken that information about what caused it into their descendants and disseminated that data. We know it happened. Atreus predicted the Phoenix phenomenon Thales of Miletus predicted it. Jacob predicted it in the war against the Canaanites. The Danaan predicted it in the war with the Fomori. Yeah, man, it's the Phoenix knowledge. Nostradamus had it, as I've shown many times. Therefore, I say that this comet may, by the appointment of God from the beginning, or since the world was framed, be the destruction of this earth. Uh-oh. So this guy says the comet of the ancient world was the Phoenix. He says that the Phoenix caused the fall of man, the end of Eden, and started the pre-flood world. He said that the Phoenix had 3 eons, that's 3 periods, 552 years each, till the flood of Noah. That's 1656 years. And then he goes on to say, and this is the exact same mechanism that will bring about the end of the world. And as I will show you, he is absolutely correct. But it's not going to happen in 2040. 2040 is going to be big, but it's not the big one. All right, so we are done. And you guys have graduated to file number 4. This is the easy one here. This is a super easy one here. I lied to you guys. Hold on. That last file has something we got. I almost. Yeah, we haven't graduated. I'm gonna share these notes because this concerns comets. So you'll understand. A comet was the Latin word used by early writers to designate anything unknown in the sky. Typhon in Liddell and Scott's Greek lexicon is explained as a type of comet or a moving star. Its cognates, typhlos, is to blind in the sense of being misty, darkened, and the verb typhlu means to wrap in smoke. That's in the Serious Mystery. That's going to be Robert Temple. Come on, why am I having problems here? Why am I freezing? My screen freezing. All right. Typhon is recognized by scholars to be the same as Phoenix. Phoenix is a sword etymologically related to the word epiphany, epi and phanes, or wonder in the sky. I'm pretty sure when Phoenix appears, it's like a wonder in the sky. It is the origin of the word epiphany. I had an epiphany. This is from the book Comet Swords of Heaven. Typhon of the Greeks, said to be so big its head reached the stars, its wings so broad they blocked out the sun. Yes, jaded source, it is the Bennu bird, and we'll get to that. It's the Bennu bird celebrated in ancient Egypt. Phoenix and Bennu are one and the same. Oh, is that Rhonda? Thank you, Rhonda Rule. Typhon of the Greeks is said to be so big. This comes from the book I just showed you called Flying. This is the Department of Defense cryptologist who wrote a chronology of the world. Oh yeah, he even got the Exodus date. Nailed it. Yeah, 1447 BC. But this is Flying Serpents and Dragons. He's talking about Typhon blocking out the sun. The book talking about the human race right now was created by a reptilian race that wanted to be able to move around on the surface when the biosphere that it's used to wasn't here. Because this is a two biosphere world, our plane. We have Ice Age, which we're in now, which the reptilians don't really like. And then we have vapor canopies, which the reptilians thrive in. It's the vapor canopy that's coming back in 2040. And I think that's it for that. No, Typhon was called, get this. Typhon was called the Prince of Darkness. Other names for Phoenix was the Angel of Death. Another name for Phoenix was the doom shape in the Colburn Bible. Some biblical scholars hold that Leviathan and Typhon are synonymous. Leviathan derives from dragon which fights against the sun. That comes from an old book from the 1800s, 1897, called Babylonian Influence on the Bible and Popular Beliefs. Didn't I just show that book? Yeah, right here. Babylonian Influence of the Bible and Popular Beliefs right here. This is an old book from 1897. The Book Tree book. Okay, so now we've graduated that file. I might add this to the Archaics Academy as a course. Just a free course for everybody who already got it. Just put the course online for people to download. This would be a good Academy course. All right, let's go with so we are now moving into a very small file, which is, well, I don't know if it's small. I spoke too soon. The charts are going to be good though. All right, sharing my screen so you can visually now see what we've been talking about. You've already seen this chart. This is the 1656 years that started after the flood. You've all seen this chart. I've posted it many times. This tells you what happens each 552 years. Now, understanding the end from the beginning. Here's the same chart. It's just written out a little bit differently. It's the exact same chart. It's the same years. It's just showing that each one of these was predicted. Every single one of these. Same chart. I'll post all these charts on X later. So here's the same chart in its most simplified form. This is what it looks like. This is exactly what it looks like. This is the 16th. This is the era. This is, according to Hesiod, the 12 phoenixes. His period was 12 phoenixes long. 12 phoenixes is 138 times 12. It is 1656 years. Here is the 1656 years of Genesis, and then the 1656 years of the historical record. They're a perfect match. This is it. Age of Typhon ends and begins the age of Phoenix, but Typhon is the Phoenix. It's just a different period of time. All right, so those are the charts. Now for this file, we have a little something to look at. So let's look at it. Share my screen again. All right. After extensive research of the biblical records, the Book of Jasher, and the Assyrian eponyms, chronologist Stephen Jones, in his Secrets of Time, published that this year, 3895 BC, was year one, so highly regarded in the ancient world. This is in Secrets of Time. I just showed you the book. Almost 1,000 years ago, the Jewish commentator Rashi wrote about the Great Deluge, which we know positively occurred in 2239 BC. And astonishingly, we find Rashi declaring that every 1656 years, a similar disaster occurs. This identifies 3895 BC as a similar disaster like the deluge, which almost totally depopulated the world. There's our confirmation right there that we're on the right track with the Phoenix chronology. The Phoenix chronology is world chronology. As shown previously in part 4, there are so many authorities revealing that the 1656 year was also our calendar year of 2239 BC that it makes all these authorities likewise agree that the start of the 1656 years would have to be the year 3895 BC for the fall of man. Now, for those familiar with my Great Pyramid research, I show in the chronometry of the Great Pyramid that the Great Pyramid's chief begin date for mankind is 3895 BC. and it's unmistakable. You can't even, there's no way to manipulate the measurements. The measurements in the Great Pyramid are set in stone, and they show us 3895 BC. I've shown this quite a few times. All right. Now you have graduated. File number 4. We're going to file number 5. And I just showed you this book in file number 5. It's somewhere in this pile. But we're going to look at some of the passages in this book. I just threw this book down somewhere. I can't reach it. Babylonian Influence on the Bible and Popular Beliefs. 1897. All right. So, that many have sought to escape from the difficulty by regarding the detailed account given in the first of Genesis as not that of an original creation, but rather that of the recreation or reconstruction of a material world already existent and already, for some unexplained reason, brought to confusion. Do you see how scholars in the 1800s were decoding the book of Genesis? And they were going literally by the translation of the text, and they had determined that the Adam and Eve and Eden story was a reset, that the world had been destroyed, and that Genesis was not conveying an original creation, but a renovation of pre-existing world. The prophet Isaiah states explicitly that God created not the earth, a tohu or desolation. And in this view, there is nothing contradictory when Genesis says, as it apparently does, that the earth which God had created in the beginning had become desolation and emptiness. Yep. It's called gap theory. All right. So, have been some hostile power at work. What is this? Which had introduced ruin. Yeah. Some hostile power at work, which had introduced ruin and desolation into what had originally been the perfect handiwork of the Almighty. Inasmuch then as the words tohu wabohu, when used in other passages of Scripture, Isaiah 34:2 and Jeremiah 4:23, imply not mere negative imperfection, but actual laying waste and positive desolation. Thank you, Bradley Long. But desolation, so it is thought they must denote here traces of wreck and ruin, which had been wrought in the earth by the overthrow of its original denizens. Again, this is a scholarly reinterpretation of the book of Genesis, showing that the world of Adam and Eve came after a previous world and its original denizens, its inhabitants, were destroyed. Let's see. Moses introduces him without explanation with a prefixed article, the serpent, as one already well known in the current beliefs of his people. This abrupt entrance of the serpent upon the scene, as Baumgarten remarks, seems to imply that he had stood in some relation to the earth previous to the 6 days' creation. Of this relation, he says, I find a trace in Genesis 1:2, where the earth is described as a territory of darkness, of emptiness, and of a roaring deep. In such a condition of the earth, I cannot by any means recognize the beginning of the ways and works of God. In other words, in Tiham, which is the origin of the Babylonian Tiamat, the destructive power of evil was already manifest. Its visible incarnation was the dragon or serpent. So evil pre-existed Adam and Eve. That world was totally destroyed, and the serpent was a major player in this destruction. Now, we know that Phoenix is often called the dragon or the dragon of chaos. Mother Shipton calls them the sky dragons. This would be Phoenix and Nemesis X. But here's the serpent. What's really interesting in Hebrew, though, serpent has another interpretation. It means one who sees, or an interpreter. That's what serpent means. So in Hebrew, it means interpreter, or one who interprets. All right. Accordingly, the Mosaic account of the 6 days creation would really have to do with the reconstruction of the marred and disorganized earth, which the Creator reduced to order after the banishment of the fallen angels. Now, this is just religiosity. The whole angel deal, this is just later. This is what happens when thousands of years pass and people are putting together the fragments of the past, and their biases are introduced. It's the same thing the Arabic traditions did when they introduced the jinn. Now, it's a pre-existing human race, is what it is. Just like when the rabbinical text corrupted the earlier Hebrew, and they said that the sons of God came into the daughters of men and took all they chose. Well, when you read the book of Jasher, which is pure Hebrew and not rabbinical, it literally goes through there and tells you, man, that the sons of God were the judges of the earth, and they took from the daughters of men. They took from other families the daughters of men. There's nothing supernatural about it in the book of Jasher. So yeah, it's cargo cult phenomenon is all it is. It is a technologically advanced or more advanced race imposing themselves, almost all being males of military age, probably imposing themselves on an indigenous culture, and they exchanged females for tools, weapons, and knowledge. This is what the Book of Enoch shows. The whole campaign of the Watchers and how the daughters of men were acquired was through giving humans before the flood all kinds of different knowledges on spermicides and herbs and warfare and tool making and metallurgy, and teaching them astronomy and all this stuff, hunting, how to build canals and architecture. It was a trade-off. Some men from a pre-existing culture barely made it to a shore, and they married into the local population, and they brought knowledge in exchange. The only thing they could have for a dowry was basically the tools and weapons that they brought with them, and the knowledge of how to do all kinds of things, which blew the minds of the indigenous culture. It's a cargo cult phenomenon. With this may be compared the Babylonian legend of the revolt of a portion of the heavenly host. In the fourth book of the creation epic, Bel Merodach challenges Tiamat. It's talking about the Enema Elish, the 7 tablets of Babylonian creation, which is a composition from the time period of the Neo-Babylonian Renaissance of Nebuchadnezzar the First. Let's see. Challenges Tiamat with the words, "Trouble on high, thou hast excited." So they also had arrived at the opinion held by many commentators that it was in order to restore the disturbed harmony of the universe and to fill up the gap left by the defection of the rebel angels that mankind was created. This is very similar to the Sumerian version. The Igigi, which were a branch of the Anuna, rebelled because they didn't want to do the labor anymore. So the Anuna mixed their own DNA with primate DNA, chimpanzee, to create modern humans. So it's the same story. In their room, they created mankind. All right. The Indians of the New World conceived that huracan, the origin of hurricane, the mighty fertilizing wind, passed over the waters of chaos in the form of a huge bird. That's putting the phoenix right there at Genesis 1. And so called the earth into being. It's a creative act. The Finnish Kalevala, I still have that text. I haven't got through it all. The Finnish Kalevala has the same idea. Compare the myths of the world egg, the account of the creation given in the Rig Veda has many points in common. The phoenix egg. How many times have we gone through the medieval and Renaissance woodcuts and ink and the illustrations from the old books? How many times have we seen the serpent wrapped around the world egg? Yeah, it's literally a symbol for the phoenix being the symbol for both creating and destroying a world. All right. Tiamat, the original Deep, is often referred to as the mother of a brood of composite monsters, half beast, half bird, the rudimentary creatures of a previous eon. All right. So it is noteworthy that by the parallelism, the proud sea and Rahab, the noisy storm dragon or sea serpent, are declared to be the enemies of Yahweh, which he routs with his mighty arm. It was in the days of old, the generations of ancient times, the creation, that Yahweh cut Rahab in pieces and pierced the dragon. There is an interesting transition in verse 10 from the legendary to the historical. Okay, if we transpose this situation of the phoenix being the enemy of Yahweh and we carry it over to the modern world, then we're given an idea here that the phoenix phenomenon is adversarial to those who follow Yahweh. Process that for a minute. In other presentations, we have talked about the role of the Jew in the construct. The Jews sign the contract. They sign the contract with Yahweh, which is basically the worship of Molech. So in this context, there is enmity between the phoenix and the followers of Yahweh. Do they fear the phoenix and what it does? Create these resets, completely breaks up their infrastructure that they took so long. They always take so long to take over everything, but they never, I mean, this is just something to process. It may be a new avenue of research in the future. But I have painted in the past for other reasons. I've painted the phoenix. I know it's a reset protocol, but shit, I still have evidence, as I've shown, that the phoenix is a benefactor protocol. Doesn't benefit them, but it benefits us. All right, so now Phoenix, rudimentary creatures of a previous eon corresponding to the saurians and amphibious reptiles. Uh-oh, we're getting into Nemesis X stuff now. The Chaldean symbol for lightning, and this is evidently only a halving or abbreviated form of the original. There's a little symbol there. I got it in my book, Lost Scriptures of Giza, too. I talk about this. The labrys. It is the flame of the turning weapon which guarded the gate at Eden. Yeah, this is supposed to be a weapon that was in the hand of Zeus. He used it as the thunderbolt. All right, so now we have graduated file number 5. We are now moving into file number 6, and we are going back to the 1940s and 50s to Ignatius Donnelly. Actually, it's 1890s to 1850s. He was so prolific. Oh, we got some humdingers left. Don't bail on me yet. We got some humdingers, guys. The Destruction of Atlantis. Here it is right here. This is a new title. The original title from the 1800s was Ragnarok, the Age of Fire and Gravel. I think he's 1950s. Hold on. Yeah, he wrote this in the 50s. Yeah, this is almost confused him with somebody else from the 1800s. This is Ignatius Donnelly, he wrote a fantastic book called Atlantis, the Antediluvian World. Absolutely. I got that in my library too. It's not the subject matter of this video, but this is Ragnarok, the Age of Fire and Gravel. It's a real big book too. Packed. It's packed, guys. I did a video about this book. A lot of quotes in that video. We're going to have a few of them right now. So we will find legend after legend about this Typhon. He runs through the mythologies of different nations. And as to his size and his terrible power, they all agree. He was no earth creature. He moved in the air, a comet. He reached the skies. According to Pindar, the head of Typhon reached to the stars. His eyes darted fire. His hands extended from the east to the west. Terrible serpents were twined about the middle of his body, and 100 snakes took the place of fingers on his hands. Between him and the gods, there was a dreadful war. Jupiter finally killed him with a flash of lightning and buried him under Mount Etna. Remember, Typhon becomes the phoenix. Ragnarok. The very name is significant. According to Professor Anderson's etymology of the word, Ragnarok means the darkness of the gods. From Regan, gods, and Rocker, darkness. But it may more properly be derived from the Icelandic, Danish, and Swedish Regan, or rain. A rain and rock, which is smoke or dust. And it may mean the rain of dust, for the clay came first as the dust. Remember, Phoenix brings the cinnamon. Phoenix always brings red dust. The last Phoenix year was 1902. Remember the videos where I show all over the world red dust fell everywhere? In some high humidity areas, it was red rain and red mud. All right. Zohak is the same as Azitahaka. Oh my God. I'm not even going to try. In the Avesta. This is ancient Iran. The biting snake of winter. He is Python. He is Typhon. He is the Fenris wolf that eats the moon. He is the Midgard serpent. These are all terms for the phoenix. So let's see. God divided the light from the darkness, and there was morning and evening on the first, second, and third days, while the sun, moon, and stars, we are told, were not created until the fourth day, and grass and fruit trees were made before the sun. What Ignatius Donnelly is doing is he's showing that Genesis was not a creation, because the things that required the sun actually appeared before the sun, moon, and the stars appeared in the creation account. So it's not a creation account. Plants and animals appeared before the sun came out, but was even made, before the stars. It says the 6 days of creation were not a creative account. It is a description of basically the clearing of the skies after a great destruction of the world, how the world becomes normalized. He says it's been totally misunderstood, and only in religionists way later took the original documents and rewrote them as a creation when it was actually a renovation after a vast destruction. That's why Genesis doesn't make any sense. How, it is asked, could there be night and day and vegetation without a sun? And to this assault, religion has had no answer. Well, I just gave you the answer. But where were they? Okay, can think that the first, second, and third days were without a sun, moon, and stars. But where were they? Why did they not appear? What obscured them? What could obscure them but dense clouds? Where did the clouds come from? They were vaporized water. What vaporized the water and caused this darkness on the face of the deep, so dense that the sun, moon, and stars did not appear until the world had clothed itself? Because it was a vapor canopy. And then the world was destroyed, and the vapor canopy was no more. The sky fell, the sun came out. The sun, and that's the end of the story. So that's Ignatius Donnelly, and congratulations, you have graduated the 6th file. We are moving into the 7th. Very short. This one's super short. I had to separate it because it was a different book. This is a book called Myth of the Phoenix. This is a book called Myth of the Phoenix. I showed it once before for something totally different. Arvin de Broek, The Myth of the Phoenix. The view that Phoenix lives in paradise is also found in the rabbinical traditions. Phoenix lived in paradise. That automatically puts the phoenix in Eden, Adam and Eve. The bird Hole, which was also called Malham or Maltum, was said to have been the only bird or beast to refuse the fruit offered by Eve, and for this reason to have been given the gift of eternal life by God. Here it is probably also assumed that this bird was allowed to remain in paradise after the fall. According to one tradition, after the fall of man, the Jewish phoenix went to reside in the mysterious city of Luz. That's light, to which even the angel of death could not gain admittance. That the phoenix went to reside in a city is a concept actually found in Egypt. We'll get to that in a minute. Both the Bennu and the phoenix. The Bennu is the phoenix of Egypt. It's called the Bennu bird. Represented cycles of time. Both the Bennu and the phoenix functioned as symbols of the events and conditions belonging to the beginning of the world. The beginning of the world is Eden. This is Adam and Eve's story, again associated to the Bennu and the Phoenix. Congratulations, you have graduated from file number 7. File number 8, we're going to look at the Gnosis. Okay, in the Nag Hammadi scriptures, it's huge, guys. 1945. Right here in the Nag Hammadi scriptures, we have a very curious reference of the phoenix. Let me share my screen. So, when Sophia Zoe saw that the archons of darkness cursed her friends who were like her, she was angry. She came from the first heaven with all her power and chased the rulers from their heavens. And she cast them down into the sinful world so that they might dwell there as evil demons upon the earth. She sent a bird that was in paradise, so that until the end of the age, it might spend 1,000 years in the ruler's world. The bird, a living creature endowed with soul, is called the phoenix, and it kills itself and revives itself as an image of the judgment against the rulers. Rulers are archons, because they dealt unjustly with Adam and his generation until the end of the age. So there's a concept here. There's a general concept that whatever Sophia is, it exacted revenge against a group that had dealt treacherously with early humans. And in order to keep that group that dealt treacherously with early humans, in order to keep them in check, in order to maintain a checks and balances so they couldn't come rise up against the race of Adam the way they had done when they had totally destroyed his world before, she implemented the phoenix. And the phoenix was to act as a governor to keep these rulers in check. This is what the gnosis conveys. There are three human beings and their descendants in the world until the end of the age: the spiritual, the psychical, and the earthly. These are the three types of humans in the Sophia narrative. This circumstance is like the three kinds of phoenixes of paradise. The first is immortal, the second lives 1,000 years, and the third is consumed, according to what is written in the holy book. Likewise, there are three baptisms. The first is spiritual, the second is by fire, and the third is by water. As the image of the phoenix appears with reference to the angels, so the water serpents in Egypt indicate those who go down for the baptism of a true human being. It's really interesting that phoenix is literally, it's in reference to angels here. There's an old Jewish legend. It's published in one of the books by Tracy Twyman. I believe it's the Merodean mythos. And I've showed it before. I've got pictures of the actual page. And two angels were banished from heaven for 138 years because they basically snitched to Lot and told Lot that the angel of death was coming for Sodom and Gomorrah. Angel of death is another title of the phoenix, like the doom shape. Angel of death. So also Prince of Darkness is another title of the phoenix. So it's crazy that 138 is in reference to angels, and 138 is the number of the phoenix. It all everything fits. So the two bulls in Egypt indicate a mystery, the sun and the moon, which represents Sabaoth, because Sophia of the world has been exalted above the sun and moon from the time when she created them and sealed her heaven until the end of the age. The worm that is born from the phoenix also represents humanity. It is written of it, the just will sprout like a phoenix. The phoenix first appears alive, then dies, and then rises again as an image of what appears at the end of the age. Over and over, you see here in the Nag Hammadi text that phoenix is referenced in tandem with the idea of eons and ages. The great images have appeared only in Egypt, not in other lands, indicating that Egypt is like God's paradise. Well, Egypt is in fact where the Akuzan is located. Akuzan is what we call Giza today. All right, so what do we got here? We got some more. We got something else about the Gnostic text. Hold on. I'm going to share my screen again. Make sure enough this wasn't important. All right, cool. All right, cool. So let's see. So the Gnostic text on the origin of the world, discovered in 1945, reads that Phoenix was a witness against the powers of darkness, against the angels, and that it would endure until the consummation, which is the end. And this is what we're going to show in this video. The Phoenix was a witness in the heavens, just as are the sun and moon. This identifies Phoenix as a celestial body. In the Gnostic text, trimorphic protenoi, which shows that the gods were made fearful because their body of ascent planet. I need to take that Anunnaki out of there. What the hell happened there? I don't know what happened there. All right. Let me take that out right there. That doesn't belong there. Let's see. Which shows that the gods were made fearful because their body of ascent, in brackets we have planet, was destroyed by a thunder in the deep, southern space, caused by a great fire that overturned their thrones. Planets are called thrones by the ancients. These archons, lords of time, planetary motion, said, our entire habitation has been shaken, and the entire circuit of our path of ascent, orbit, has been met with destruction, and the path upon which we go. So the text depicts, and I know the imagery is offensive. I don't even believe in the whole heliocentric model no more. But I'm just saying this text is literally conveying, remember, we're on two planes, the soul plane and the nemesis plane. It's describing an object coming up one plane. It's called the plane of ascent. The path. This is the path of ascent. But something in the deep did something and destroyed the path of ascent. Remember, Nemesis X and Phoenix are both on the Nemesis X plane. This is why they cannot be. That's why Phoenix can't be seen, but in the month of May. It's literally coming out of the north of space. It's off the ecliptic. It's off Sol's ecliptic completely. It's probably at about 60 degrees perpendicular to Sol's ecliptic. We've discussed this in prior presentations. It's not the subject matter here. But this is literally a text describing an object ascending from below the soul system, coming from somewhere else, coming from the deep. This is the Nag Hammadi Library, page 186 to 188, and again on 517 to 518. But it's pretty interesting. The reason this is so interesting is because it mirrors something in a Babylonian text called the Enema Elish. This Gnostic text is very reminiscent of the Babylonian Enema Elish text, copied from the older Sumerian documents, read that Earth was originally from the deep, the abyss, south of the present positioning orbiting Sol. This early cosmological text records an ancient solar system cataclysm involving destruction of planets and their rearrangement. The Earth and its orbit, motion, the constellations of the zodiac, the ecliptic plane, as now seen from Earth, were not established until the fifth tablet. It's 7 tablets. Enema Elish is 7 tablets. Our Earth and world was established on the 7th tablet, when the moon began orbiting Earth, and it was ordained to determine the days. It literally even says in these older records that the years were not counted. So we have a concept here. We have a concept here of worlds being thrones or planes being thrones, and that planes can come in contact. Planes can overlap. They travel. Planes travel. This is where you get your convergence fields. When planes overlap, creating the MasterCard logo, then you have a tertiary field. So something happened and destroyed whatever the gate mechanism was, whatever they were trying to do, and they came here. And this pissed off Sophia or whatever the governing archonic power was, and either she or it trapped them here and made Phoenix like a governor that basically keeps the elite in check. These are all just concepts, and some of it could be wrong. I'm really focused on the chronology, not so much the concepts behind it all. But the Babylonian Enema Elish text copied from the older Sumerian documents, read that Earth was originally from the deep. Is that exact same thing? Yeah, it's the exact same thing over again. It got put here twice, or I just scrolled up. Yeah, so we have this Gnostic theme here, basically replicated in the Babylonian Enum Elish, which the Babylonian version is older, but it kind of shows that Earth. Remember I showed you guys on the Taishis Bode law. Yeah, Earth is an intruder. The Earth plane does not belong here. We are out of place, completely out of place. So you can take that from a grain of salt if you want, whatever. It's just something that needs to be mentioned. We don't practice exclusions. We got to mention all the data, whether we agree with the model or not. So, congratulations, you just graduated a whole nother the 8th file. The 9th file is super small because this is Robert Graves, undisputed authority on Greek antiquities. This is Robert Graves. We have cited this book many times, as well as his other books. The White Goddess, Robert Graves. We have one page to look at. You have to understand, this is a man who he translated and poured over many, many ancient manuscripts. He wrote the Greek myths. He wrote the White Goddess, and he wrote like 4 other books. Very prolific, but he wrote that Phoenix was a calendar beast. That's exactly what he said. It was a calendar beast associated to Heliopolis. This is in Egypt. Right here, down here, he says that the sun had completed his great revolution, and the old sun eagle was therefore returned to the nest for the inauguration of a new phoenix age. I should have started back. Hold on, let me start that over. This eagle represented the sun god. And the palm, they're called phoenix palms, and the palm was sacred to the great goddess, his mother. There you go. Here's another goddess connection, like the Sophia Phoenix connection. Here's a goddess connection to the phoenix as well. The sun had completed its great revolution, and the old sun eagle was therefore returned to the nest for the inauguration of, what did Robert Graves say? A phoenix age. What was Phoenix according to Robert Graves? A calendar beast. Man, we have Phoenix, the keeper of the calendar. And congratulations, you have graduated file number 9. Moving now to file 10 about Con Thomas and his CIA redacted theory about Adam and Eve. Let's check that out real quick. You guys know what I'm talking about. I've never really given it much thought because so many guys that push the 12,000 year Younger Dryas narrative, they all cite Con Thomas. So I've left it alone for years, even though it's been a big deal. A lot of people want to do videos on it. I've just left it alone. I have never once done a video on that document on Con Thomas because it just turns me off how his data has been manipulated to push narratives that don't exist. They're false narratives. But here is the Adam and Eve story. Well, first of all, wait a minute. How'd that happen? Let me show you what it looks like first. Yeah, I got the wrong one. Stop screen, share my screen. Might not be a real clear picture. The Adam and Eve story, the history of cataclysms by Chan Thomas or Con Thomas, probably Chan. Con Thomas, I don't know. Anyway, this is 1963, 1964, 1965. He published this book, and it was basically apprehended by the CIA Although they never got all the copies. There were still copies in circulation, but the CIA did take it, and the dude quit publishing the book, and the CIA we'll read about it here in a minute. But it's interesting. It's the story of Adam and Eve. Let's just read about it real quick. It's very necessary to this presentation to show you that this is, I should be able to blow that up a little bit. Hold on, so y'all can see it better. All right. The Adam and Eve Story, The History of Cataclysms by Con Thomas, whatever his name is, published around 1963 to 1965, and subsequently disappeared, classified by the CIA. The CIA declassified a heavily sanitized, approximately 57-page excerpt in 2013. But despite claims that it was originally longer, the author himself republished in 1993, and the text was still the same size, except an 85-page addendum was added entitled Aftermath of the Adam and Eve Story. So the claims that the CIA didn't release it all is just really untrue. They did have a bunch of it blacked out. It's redacted, it's edited, but it was 57 pages. So here's basically a paraphrase of what his research was. And it's very interesting because he's saying that the Adam and Eve in Eden story isn't what you think. He says that Earth undergoes massive resets every few thousand years, roughly 5,000 to 7,000 years. Lithospheric displacements, crustal slippage, stuff like that. A massive earthquake triggers supersonic winds up to 1,000 miles per hour, enormous tsunamis miles high, volcanic mantle breakthroughs, like earth fire, and rapid climate flips, like instant freezing in some regions, like we've documented in Archaics, tropical shifts in others. Continents are inundated, scoured, and buried in homogenized mud. Civilizations are erased in hours to days. Survivors face a new Stone Age. Remember what's coming in the eschatology? The Stone Kingdom. It's the one that replaces all the human metal kingdoms. Remember the stone uncut by human hands, the return of the chief cornerstone. Remember where I presented the idea that, listen, guys, if I were the devil, I would present I would present my Messiah as, the Savior and all that stuff. But in 2106 AD, it's just the opposite happening of what you expect. At the end of the timeline, the year 6000 from 3895 BC is the year 2106. And the return of the chief cornerstone isn't who you think he is. It's not Jesus coming on a white horse. Yeah, it's something else. And the coming of the Stone Kingdom, which replaces the metal kingdoms, gold, silver, brass, iron mixed with miry clay, is destroyed by a stone uncut by human hands, comes from the sky. And it's a metaphor for the return of the chief cornerstone, who ushers in the Stone Kingdom. What if it's all? We're in an evil predator versus prey construct. What if it's the ultimate bullshit? It's the ultimate, rug pull, as Mr. OG Face Diaper likes to say. The Stone Kingdom is nothing but a new Stone Age. It's a whole new Neolithic, and we become the Cro-Magnon of the future. Adam and Eve, Noah, and others in mythological and religious traditions represent survivors of prior cataclysms who repopulate and restart civilization. Also, he discusses societal decline before the event. It shouldn't be behand. I was typing too fast. Before the event. So that's Con Thomas. Basically, he's saying everything that I just pulled out of these old books. That's the Adam and Eve CIA document. So, congratulations. You have graduated all the way to the last file. So let's get to it. Because I'm getting hungry. I'm like super hungry right now. Share my screen. All right. It is going down. Okay. Adam and Eve are Jewish versions of Babylonian passages from the badly misunderstood records of the old world concerning a period when the first modern humans, the Adamu, thrived in a civilization that abruptly ended in disaster. The worldwide ruin is found in Jeremiah chapter 4, verses 23 through 26, where we read that the earth was without form and void. It is in the only other place that you can find tohu wabohu in the Bible is in Genesis chapter 1, verse 2, when the world was suddenly destroyed and covered in darkness. So, using only scripture to interpret scripture, which is the Christian exegetical analysis, then tohu wabohu of Jeremiah chapter 4, which has no explanation for the time of Jeremiah, is actually applied to Genesis chapter 1, verse 2. And in the Jeremiah passages, it says that the world became without form and void. Darkness was over the face of the deep, and all cities were destroyed. Jeremiah added a detail Genesis didn't have. All cities were destroyed. All cosmogenesis traditions from antiquity have earth born from a chaos, a disruption of previous order, linked to evil that involved the visitation of a celestial dragon, a frightening body in the sky. In Hebrew, in the book of Genesis, the dried out land masses in Genesis creation account is the correct rendering. When in English, it actually says, and the waters were gathered into one place. That is not what it says in Hebrew. In English, it says the waters were gathered into one place. Yabashah. But in Hebrew, it says dried out land masses. How many of you remember the Mother Shipton poem, which literally says that after the sky dragon leaves, mankind's new dynasty is always on former ocean beds? Dried out land masses. That's what Genesis is really conveying. That's why Adam and Eve had such a hard time. Their whole world was gone. Hell, cataclysm must have happened at night because they were found naked, had no clothes. The fall of man idea was an old Babylonian sin doctrine, having been diffused into many ancient religious faiths, strongly in Judaism, then Christianity. Sin was disobedience to the gods, but the original story was about a cataclysm. It was not about mankind being evil. The fall of man was never about sin. That's what these cutthroat, no good, dirty dog religionists imposed upon the structure of the past. The original past was all about a total systemic reset, not something man deserved. That's what religionists did. In Babylon, the Jews read of a disaster and ominous darkening of the sun at the death and banishment of the Adamu, prompting the Jews to write in their narrative that at the death of Adam, the sun darkened. This is in the book of Jasher. In the book of Jasher, the sun darkened at the death of Adam. The creation story and the account of the fall of man involved the fiery revolving sword and cherub that appeared after mankind was cursed to die. A cherub is a mighty angel, a messenger. The cherub, this messenger, prevented mankind from going back to its original condition. The only other figure that was there was the serpent, but serpent in Hebrew means he who interprets, or an interpreter. So when Adam and Eve, or the first people, had survived the cataclysm and they had come together, the story is really conveying that somebody represented by the serpent had confronted them and literally given them misinformation, told them a false version of reality, and they ran with it. And for some reason, it worked. Somebody had interpreted something for them and they ran with it, and it started this whole religious deal. And it's not the truth. It's not the truth. Hell, it could have been one of the reptilians. Who knows? Who knows? But there are clues in the narrative, such as serpent meaning interpreter. Let's see. In the Norse Eden story, it was Muspelheim, guarded by the giant Surtur, who had a flaming sword with which he guarded a gate. It was this fiery sword. There's the fiery sword of Eden right now. It's guarding a portal or a gate. Remember what happens during these cataclysms. This is something we need to discuss for a second. It's not as simple. If you're new to archaics, you have no idea what we're talking about. But these systemic resets are tertiary fields. Tertiary fields act as gateways between planes. The plane we're on right now is the terrasphere. But when these systemic resets happen, it's either the Nemesis X plane or it's the Phoenix plane. Is it possible that the humans that were left behind and bereft of their infrastructure were left because somebody gave them bad information and they weren't at certain geographical locales where they could have actually passed on, and they would have never even experienced a reset? Because when the planes collide and a tertiary field envelopes the area, shoot, if they're vibrating on the frequency of the other plane, they just pass on to the other side. It's like an exodus. You can call it a rapture. But for those who are in dissonance, they go through some shit, and just like the plane does, and they experience everything terrible. And the survivors, were they survivors that were abandoned because somebody had given them a false interpretation and they were bereft of the security of the Exodus? They didn't make it. They didn't make it because they were miseducated. They didn't make it because they were told the wrong information or given the wrong coordinates. So when the tertiary field elapses, and it does every single time there is a systemic reset, it is either Phoenix or Nemesis X. And both of them bring tertiary fields. And tertiary fields are actually portals. So I'm just telling you, I'm just saying, these are things to ponder. Those of you deep into the archaics material, man, to understand what I'm talking about, this is another data point to ponder about the Adam and Eve story. Were people who were left behind intentionally because they were fed false information? All right. So Phoenix, that brought warmth to meet the frozen world of before. Okay, yeah. So that's in Lost Race of the Giants. We have that book right here. And we have, here's the other Harold T. Wilkins book. This is a huge book. Secret Cities of Old South America. This is the Harold T. Wilkins. He's the only one that made the connection that Typhon and Phoenix caused the fall of man, caused the great flood of Noah, and he's the only one to include, that I've found so far, to actually say that the red dust, red rain, red mud, worldwide quakes, fallout, subsidence, total end of civilization of the Ogygian destruction in 1687 BC was also the Typhon and Phoenix. He's the only one I found that connected all three. But he says right here, long ago in China, the dragon serpent was a symbol for cataclysm, and the tree was a symbol of life. That's Secret Cities of Old South America, page 273. So, the Heliopolitan cosmology of Egypt as revealed in the Edfu reliefs held that before the appearance of the Neteru, the Pin god appeared in some kind of violent conflict which brought to a close the first period of creation. An enemy appeared in the form of a serpent, dragon, known as the Great Leaping One. As a consequence of this mass devastation, the first inhabitants all die and darkness returns to the world. This is Gods of Eden, Collins. I kind of like Andrew Collins. I kind of do. Andrew Collins and I can sit down and drink a beer and talk about shit. Comes from Andrew Collins' book, Gods of Eden. I've got two other Collins books. I tend to separate him from all the people I call out. But yeah, there it is right there. Edfu books, the Neteru. The Neteru were the 10 divinities of ancient Egypt. In other cultures, they're called the 10 kings. They're also the 10 patriarchs of Genesis. They're called the 10 Petries of India, the 10 fathers. And the Pin god is the phoenix. It brings death and decay, and the earth vanishes into the watery none, chaos, and perpetual dark. Again, Gods of Eden. But this belief is not solely confined to the Edfu in Egypt. This is the Pin god. This is the Pin god that started the creation, which was actually a destruction. Pin god is Phoenix. But elsewhere in Egypt, we have the same concept at Heliopolis. Heliopolis, anciently called On, O-N, and before that, when it had Sumerian governors over Egypt, it was called Anu, A-N-N-U. Later on, it was called O-N, On. But by the time of the Greeks, the ancient city was called Heliopolis, City of the Sun, a metropolis of learning with universities and libraries known to Greece, Anatolia, Ionia, Crete, Phoenicia, Canaan, Syria, Mesopotamia, Elam, and India. In this city of the sun in Egypt, at an old temple, was located the mansion of the Phoenix, called Bin, where astronomer priests taught the Heliopolitan concept of reoccurring cycles of time connected to the archaic Bennu bird, the purple-plumed phoenix of Greek tradition. Again, Gods of Eden. The Bennu bird was celestial, and its appearance, quote, signaled the death of the first time, Zeptepi, the golden age of the gods, and the commencement of a new world epic. How long's a world epic? 1656 years. That's what we keep getting told. How long was the Adam and Eve Eden cataclysm to the great flood of Noah? 1656 years, which did what? Started another 1656 years, punctuated by phoenix cycles of 552 years each. Everything fits. So, what all of this chronology conceals, 3895 BC was the beginning of our timeline. It is year 1 Anno Calendaris. It is year 1 Anno Mundi. It is year 1 of the 1656 years of the pre-flood world. 3895 BC was the Adam and Eve reset. It was the last year of an unknown pre-existing civilization. But it's our beginning. Total systemic world destruction and reset. But it's our beginning. 1656 years later, which is 552 times 3, is 2239 BC, the flood of Noah, the Typhon flood, the day the sky fell. This is the Great Flood. This is what Archaics Academy courses are about. 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 are all about the Great Flood. And then 1687 BC, the Ogygian Deluge is 552 years later. Archaics courses 9, 10, 11 are about that. But 1656 years after the Ogygian Deluge is 31 BC. 31 BC, we've talked about it. The great red sky dragon appeared over Egypt. Drops of blood rained on the Mediterranean and Egypt. In the Battle of Actium, Antony and Cleopatra fought against Octavian. There's a Roman civil war, and during the civil war, one of the worst earthquakes Jerusalem ever had was suffered in 31 BC. The earthquake even toppled buildings as far away as Olympia, Greece. 31 BC is the final last date steal of the Olmecs in the Americas. They were wiped out by something. The descendants of the survivors intermarried with other local indigenous Native Americans and later developed into the Maya. But the Olmecs were wiped out. 31 BC is the last year. A deal. But 552 years after, just one Phoenix cycle later, was 522 AD. Two sky dragons are seen in the sky. The Dark Ages began. We have several videos just on 522 AD and everything that happened. The great 25-year Justinian darkness begins. The Dark Ages begins. A vapor canopy appears. Really strange times. Really strange times. Many chronologists, not just Fomenko, there are other chronologists that I've done videos about, all say the same thing about this period. It has been covered up. Just like Alexander Delamar showed, the Anno Domini calendar that we're under today, AD calendar, was invented to cover up this period of what actually happened when Nemesis X and Phoenix appeared in the same year. The only year in history where both of them appeared in the same year was 522 AD. What's interesting about 522 AD? 1656 years later is 2178. Oh, my Archaics veterans are tripping now about 2178. What does it look like on a chart? What does it look like? It looks like this. It looks like this. 3895 BC. You see my cursor? 3895 BC is right here. 3895 BC, Adam and Eve. This is the beginning of our timeline. It's the end of a pre-existing civilization. 1656 years later, here are the three periods of the guy who wrote that book of Phoenix in 1721. 1656 years to the Great Flood in 2239 BC. 552 years later is 1687 BC. 1687 BC is the Ogygian destruction, which began 1656 years to 31 BC. There's a hiatus of 552 years to 522 AD. Started the Dark Ages. You know, we got all these amazing videos about what happened during that tertiary field. Dark Ages is 1656 years till 2178 AD. Can't make this shit up. 1,000 years ago, Rashi wrote that the world is destroyed every 1656 years. 2178 is by no means an arbitrary number. It is 138 years after 2040. We're waiting on the 2040 event now. It is 14 years in the future. It's not going to be total systemic reset, but it's going to wreak havoc over a hemisphere. There is no doubt. So we're going to look at what that looks like real quick. 2178. Now we're going into simulation theory. We have to. Because of what I'm about to show you. The year 2178 is unlike any other number in existence, and it just happens to be a Phoenix number. It is on the 138-year timeline of the Anno Domini system that we're on right now that started in 522. It's 522 AD. 138 years after 2040, but it's 1,656 years. The epic, the beginning and end of the epic, began in the Dark Ages, 522. It's going to end in a Dark Age, which is 2178. This is what it looks like. And many of you who've been following me have seen this before. But there's no other number like it. Over 95% of all numbers, 1 through 9999, collapse to zero, with the remaining minority collapsing to 2178. I have shown this in many different ways. Other YouTubers have tried to disprove it, and they turned around agreeing with me when they realized that it was how it worked. But there's no explanation for the arithmetic of this plane is fixed on the number 2178. The arithmetic that we live in right now, that the fine structure constant is attached to, which is basically the baseline for all other physics constants, it is 137 and an indefinite amount to 138. But here's where it gets really weird. Every single number 1 through 9,999, and any number higher than 9,999 is merely the reduplication of a lower number. But what we have here is something unusual, because when numbers are subtracted from themselves naturally, just natural arithmetic, they always collapse into permutations that go to zero, except for about 5% of numbers. About 5% of numbers end up collapsing into the number 6534 or 4356 or 8712 or 2178, which are all mirrors of each other. They form an eternal loop. They will not collapse to zero. Why do 95% of the numbers of our reality collapse to zero? On this simple mathematical message, there are no integers in nature. Yeah, you cannot take 5 eggs and subtract it from -3 eggs. You just can't do it. There's no integers in nature. It's arbitrary. It's an arbitrary placement value that we affix. When you subtract a number from its reflection, something beautiful happens. It shows that the power of the number is tenuous. The number of permutations it takes to get to zero show you that that number is more real than other numbers, which collapse to zero instantly. But there are 5% of numbers that do not collapse to zero. They collapse only into 4 numbers, and all 4 of those numbers are actually 2178. Those numbers are here: 2178, 6534, 4356, and 8712. But they are the number 2178 as well. 2178 times 2, 2178 times 3, and 2178 times 4. That's what those numbers are. And yet, when you subtract them from each other, they just loop. They never go to zero. You're stuck on an eternal loop. 2178 is the immortal number. It attaches the arithmetic of our plane to something else, but we can't get through to it. We get looped back. It's exactly what we find in this mathematical exercise, is exactly what we find in the timeline. Because in the timeline, which, let me show the time. In the timeline, it's the exact same. Here's all the Phoenix, all the known historical Phoenix deals right here. Every 138 years. But when we get to 2178, what happens? You're going to loop right back to 3895 BC. 3895 BC, the Adam and Eve reset is a complete destruction, but it's the beginning of our timeline. And you loop right through history all the way back. And then when you get to 2178, you can't go anywhere. When it collapses, you loop right back. The Phoenix timeline shows the constructural programming. You loop right back to the beginning. Souls pass through all these historical periods and all these historical deals, but many souls make their escape. How do we know? We've already shown this over and over and over. In the tertiary field events, they serve two purposes. If you have the correct information, you are vibrating on the frequency of escape. And the total systemic reset actually creates a conduit where you can literally sail or walk straight onto the other plane during the tertiary field. During the convergence field, if you're on the right frequency, you can walk right into the other field. And when the fields depart, you're gone with it. Every one of these total reset periods, every one of these Phoenix years is an Exodus point. Just like every Nemesis X tertiary field is an Exodus point. When souls are ready, they go. When they don't, they loop back. But through them all, there is one culture of people who sign the contract. Their avatars are attached to the construct. Their souls go right back into that culture's avatars. That's why they have the very specific blood practices, rituals, all their weird cultural beliefs. That's why. Because they know they've signed the contract and they'll ever be born straight back into the avatars of that culture. Everybody else is just passing through on different ingress and egress points. But the entire history of the world, seen through a chronological lens, literally shows the pattern. There isn't an Exodus date in the future. There are Exodus dates in the future and the past. Time is not linear. We are on one vast looping cycle. That's my presentation, guys. Archaics 4.0. If you want more information on this type of stuff, though, like, I don't know, I've showed this before. This is I got so much. I mean, it's all posted on X several times. This is the mathematical anomaly of 2178. It is just so bizarre how it functions. It's proof that we're in some type of mathematical construct. I got all this Phoenix file stuff. Yeah. Anyway, that's it right there, guys. 3895 BC and the 1656. It's the fifth video. Well, we're not done with Phoenix at all. We have to fill in the gaps. We have to fill in the holes now, and we got new data. Yeah, some of these 138-year periods that are between the 552-year cycles, oh shit, we got new data that I've never posted before. We're going to fill in the blanks. You got the big ones now. 583 BC, 1135 BC, Atlantis, Ogygian deluge, 1687 BC, the Great Flood of Noah, the Typhon, the day the sky fell, 2239 BC. You got though 3895 BC, which began the calendar, the 1656-year world killer cycle, and then the Phoenix cycle of 552 years. You got these big ones, but now we've got several of the epicycles, which are exactly 138 years apart. We got to fill those in now. That's the next Archaics 4.0 presentation. You're not going to have to wait long either. But that's my presentation, guys, and my stomach is killing me. I guess all that rowing I've been doing lately, man, it's got my metabolism a lot higher. Because I ate a taco earlier this morning, a breakfast taco, man, that thing's gone. That thing is gone. My stomach feels like it's trying to eat itself. I feel like I've been chewing on battery acid. Dr. Ward, you like that humdinger? Yeah, man. Hell yeah. So, my books. I do have some books right here. All right. Okay, so I don't have but like 3 or 4 copies left of Awaken the Immortal Within. I got several of Lost Scriptures of Giza, the true history and use function, the Great Pyramid. That's and the whole history of Enoch. Chronicon, the pre-flood world. This documents the 3,000 years of the pre-flood world, starting in 5239 BC. Yeah, guys, remember, there was a whole world before Adam and Eve. This book is Chronicon. I got a bunch of copies of this. I still got a bunch of copies of Giants. My Giants book is not like a lot of these other Giants books. I went deep off into the actual text, traditions, I didn't really focus on actual finding giant skeletons like a bunch of these other giants books. I went into some real deep traditions, common denominators between all the oldest writings in the world and how giants and titans factor in there. It's a pretty big book. But this is my Giants book. I still got copies of that. I still got quite a few copies of Anunnaki Homeworld. Yeah, it's not just Anunnaki. This is an amazing book. It's still a good seller. This is the book that I had published in 2011 when I was telling everybody in the world that the Mayan long count does not end in 2012. And I was right. The arithmetic has been wrong ever since the 1950s when Mesoamerican scholars miscalculated it. And nobody checked the math. Everybody just went with it. Yeah, hundreds of books got published about 2012 being the end of Mayan long count. Nobody checked the math. So crazy. It's amazing. Yeah, it's amazing. I don't know what brand it is. I have to look at it, but it's real sleek. It's got a real sleek track. It's got a huge drum, and the drum builds resistance and provides the electricity to keep the digital display going. I don't have to plug it in. It's not battery operated. My rowing machine provides the electricity for the display, and the display shows multiple different factors. One of them is how many times I've pulled, what the pressure gauge is on, stuff like that. I don't know I don't know what brand it is. Yeah, but the first day I got on my rowing machine, I just went off for like 45 minutes. I wasn't really paying attention. I tend to get in it. I zone out. I just get in it. Let me tell you something. The next day, I haven't worked out like that in a long time. And that rowing machine works your butt, your glutes, your thighs, your calves, everything. Your back, stomach, core, shoulder, everything. Your whole body gets worked out. Let me tell you something. The next day, man, I had to go to HEB. I had to go grocery shopping. I'm telling you now, I was the sexiest walking guy in the place. I couldn't help it. I was switching. I was so damn sore. Yeah, man. I know I was shaking my fanny. I couldn't help it. I was so sore. But that's how you break in. Muscle has memory, so I'm getting back in shape fast. But yeah, it's that you got to break in. You got to just totally destroy yourself. Once you break in, you know, all that acid in the muscle, it helps. It helps. I've been doing it good. So Archaics 138, if you're interested in the books. Also, Archaics Academy drives are still selling, and so are the Omni drives. Because I'm not doing the individual drives. I'm not doing the old photos drive, the library drive, the super pack, the survival pack, the immortals drive, the Chronicon drive. I'm not doing that. All the individual drive will stress me out. I ain't doing it no more. Now you get everything on one drive. I bought more expensive drives so I can fit all the drives on one drive. You just buy that and get it all. Yeah, that's stressing me out with all that shit. But other than that, yeah, man, it's I'm glad you guys like this presentation. Yeah, man. So I always got to find me a real good song to close out my videos. I just don't know what I want. Tell you what. Just don't know. We were talking about reptiles, right? We were talking about reptiles there for a little bit, weren't we? Yeah, we were. Yeah, we were. We'll go and hit those lizards. Anyway, I love you guys.
left. Don't